The story starts with us seeing our main character, Park Chunjul, scaring away a few of his classmates from his sheer presence. However, he didn't intend to do so, but his physical presence is good enough to intimidate most people. We learn that Chunjul is a strong person who has learned mixed martial arts and knows how to fight properly. Alongside that, he also beat up 10 guys on his own on the first day of college. So, his goal to be just another average kid isn't coming along. Just then, he is called into the main office by the teachers. It is there that Chunjul learns of his father's passing away. Later, Chunjul has his father's possessions handed over to him, which includes a phone and a four-cut photo. We learn that Chunjul doesn't know his father, and his mother also died when he was just 4. So, he was brought up by his father's friend, Mr. Guangchul. Right then, as Chunjul is playing with his father's old phone, he gets a call. Though initially shocked, he picks up the call. The person who called claimed to be the owner of the phone, and Chunjul thought that the person was a scammer and ended up talking roughly with him. As the other person asks where Chunjul is, angry Chunjul tells him about the location and invites him to come and take the phone. Suddenly, Chunjul is shocked by the area around him changing. Gone were the skyscrapers, and instead were replaced by old-looking food stalls, and people were dressed and talking in a very outdated manner. At that moment, Chunjul is met by an aggressive-looking man who talks aggressively. The man asks Chunjul if he is the one, to which Chunjul denies having the phone, despite never being asked to have a phone. The guy discovers Chunjul hiding the phone and relays the information to another man. An attractive-looking man arrives, and Chunjul notices that the man very much looks like his father from the picture he saw before. At that very moment, Chunjul is met with a vicious left cross from the man called Park Si-hoo. Chunjul reminisces about Mr. Guangchul talking about how things were so fun in the past. People gather around to see the ongoing fight. We see Chunjul using some Brazilian jiu-jitsu as he locks Si-hoo's right arm into a well-maneuvered arm bar. Chunjul thinks that he has gotten the better of Si-hoo, as putting on a submission on a striker is the best way to subdue them. He wonders just what has happened, but he knows that the person is his father, who had abandoned him as a kid. He is extra motivated to inflict damage with his armbar, which he names the Father Twister. It is then that he once again remembers Mr. Guangchul talking about his past and just how rowdy everything was back then. But they never feared anyone because Chunjul's father was with them. Just then, we see Park Si-hoo digging down deep to hoist up Chunjul and slam him down hard on the street. This breaks off the submission and enables Si-hoo to retrieve the phone and work away. As the strongest man in Gandong is walking away, a beat-up Chunjul realizes just how talented his father was, but he still can't give up. So we see Chunjul getting up and asking his father for a proper fight. Si-hoo, being one not to back down, accepts the challenge and takes his usual boxing stance. Chunjul sees this and wonders just who uses boxing in this day and age, before opting for a more open grappling stance. Soon the fight commences between father and son. The fight starts with a quick jab from the southpaw Si-hoo, before a flurry of left and right punches from him. Chunjul is taken aback by the speed and power, but he knows what to do and sticks to his forward-out approach. Chunjul dodges an incoming punch and takes down his father before securing a full mount, ready for some ground and pound. We then see Chunjul thinking about his memories, how a poisonous gas leakage had killed his mother right after his father left home, and since that day he had never seen his dad. This motivates him to beat up his careless father, but it's his father who has the full mount now. As we see Chunjul being devastated by a barrage of punches, we learn that Si-hoo had reversed the mount from Chunjul by performing a neckbridge rollover, a move used by experienced jiu-jitsu and amateur wrestling practitioners. As Si-hoo gets up after beating Chunjul to a pulp, we see a sneaky Chunjul running away from the scene with the phone that he stole back while taking the punishment. Si-hoo realizes this and gets mad. He invites his entire group to gather and look for Chunjul. Meanwhile, we see Chunjul running away to a nearby cyber cafe. There he uses a computer to log into the internet and check the exact date. He finds out that he has traveled back to 2003. He wonders just what triggered this weird time-traveling case and why it happened. It is then that he thinks of calling someone in the future. He checks the phone and calls the number of Mr. Guangchul, but it is the Guangchul of 2003 who picks up the call and is very mad. Chunjul hangs up the call and wonders if he can call the future Guangchul by using his new phone number. He remembers that Guangchul had made him memorize his number just in case of an emergency. Chunjul dials the number and calls Guangchul of the future. The 40-year-old boxing gym director picks up the call and Chunjul explains the situation. Guangchul is surprised and concludes that it is a scammer calling just like Chunjul previously. Chunjul provides details details of the recent dates of Guangchul to prove it is him. Guangchul is still skeptical, but it is then that we see the 18-year-old Guangchul enter the cyber cafe, along with his friends to take out Chunjul. Chunjul makes fun of the 18-year-old Guangchul's looks. While he is making fun of him, Guangchul from the past tries to throw a right cross to Chunjul, but is intercepted with a leg sweep into a punch. This leaves the 2003 Guangchul in an injured state, and it also puts a permanent scar on his head, which can be seen in present-day Guangchul too. This makes the present-day Guangchul believe in Chunjul somewhat, and right then, another scar shows up on his head, thanks to the attack dealt to his past self by Chunjul. This makes Guangchul believe in the time-traveling story, and he tells Chunjul that he can save his dad if he can impact the future. This infuriates Chunjul as he doesn't like his father. However, Guangchul also says that he can save his mother through this, and at that very moment, a beautiful young lady comes face to face with Chunjul. Seeing her triggers Chunjul's memories of his mother, and he comes to tears realizing he just met his mother from the past. Minhui, Chunjul's mother, gets mad at him for staring at her like that. Chunjul is a bit wavered by how rough his mom is behaving, but he remembers his mom being very good with knives, so it makes sense. However, his mom always treated him nicely as a kid. At that moment, Choi Mungyu, one of Sihu's friends, takes Chunjul out with a wicked, lariat-esque move. Chunjul's head hits the floor and makes a sickening thud. Minhui tells Mungyu that he could have killed Chunjul with that, but Chunjul gets up from behind, visually angry from the attack that interrupted his little reunion with his mother. And just when he is about to attack Mungyu, Sihu comes from behind and hits Chunjul with a left hook and drops him again before leaving with his phone. Chunjul is left unconscious, and when he wakes up, he realizes he is lying on Minhui's lap. Chunjul gets startled and sits up. Minhui asks him how Chunjul knows so much about Sihu, and her name too. Chunjul is dumbstruck, and just when he is about to admit to being her son from the future, Minhui interrupts him and says that she is sure that Chunjul is a relative of Sihu. Chunjul then lies about being a hidden relative of Sihu who has never met him, and that he is worried about Sihu and how he is living with his grandmother. This makes Minhui emotional as she cares about Sihu and wants him to have more people to fall back on. Chunjul then asks just what Minhui likes about Sihu. Minhui is shy at first, but admits to liking Sihu for his good looks and strength. She further says that she can't pinpoint what she likes about him because she just likes him. Chunjul asks if she will marry Sihu and have children. Minhui says she would like just one child because she wants to love the kid to the fullest. This makes Chunjul tear up, and he wonders just why he is stuck in the past, but now that he is here, he must save his mother at all costs. He then says that he has to apologize to Sihu to Minhui and gets up. This is the plan for him to get the phone and call Guangchul. Meanwhile, in the present day, Guangchul has found valuable information and is waiting for a call from Chunjul. Sihu, on the other hand, discovers an unknown number on his phone and decides to call it. We see Guangchul picking up the call, but Sihu doesn't get to talk to him because he is interrupted by a huge group of people named the Sumsil fam. Meanwhile, we see Minhui taking Chunjul to the arcade run by Mungyu and his mother. She tells how this place is their haven, and how they have all their names imprinted on the floor, as the place means a lot to them all. Chunjul then meets Mungyu's mother, who looks a lot like her son. As they're going through the introduction phase, Minhui talks with the Guangchul of her time and learns that all of them are having a huge meeting with the Samsil fam. Minhui is mad that they're still talking after so many rejections and decides to go to the scene of the meeting. Meanwhile, Mungyu's mother greets Chunjul and gives him a can of soda. She talks about how the kids have helped her set up this place and run it because they're Mungyu's friends, and Mungyu intends to be a good and responsible son. This makes Chunjul think that the guys are good at heart. Chunjul is then given coins to play one of the arcade games, and he decides to do so. The game is functioning quite well, and Chunjul is enjoying what is ancient to him. It is then that we see another customer lash out at Mungyu's mother, saying that he is losing money due to her having faulty game machines and telling her to change them. On the other hand, we see the Samsil fam telling Sihu and the group to add a specific slot game to their arcade machines. They say that they'll be the ones maintaining it. However, Sihu is against putting anything gambling related on the machines. This makes the Samsil fam says that they'll have to change their machine. Cut to the arcade store. We see that the angry customers are members of the Samsil fam, and they've started to destroy the machines. Sihu and Mungyu rush back to the scene. We see just how much hard work Mungyu and his mother had to do for them to establish this arcade, and how the other friends have helped them in doing so. However, upon arriving they see that the arcade isn't much damaged, and that all of the attackers have been dealt with by just Park Chunjul. One of the attackers tries to get back up, but Chunjul lands a lead hook to take him out for good. After helping them out, Chunjul decides to go away, but he is stopped by Si-hoo, who asks whether or not Chunjul is also from the future. This scares Chunjul a lot as he thinks that Si-hoo has figured out that he is a time traveler. However, he soon discovers that Si-hoo thinks that he is a student from a school called Future High, and Si-hoo thinks he is here to form a coalition with them, as he is being bombarded by questions regarding his identity and background. Chunjul turns the table by saying that Si-hoo and others should instead be thanking him for saving the arcade, and that if Si-hoo wants to know who Chunjul is, then he should give his phone to Chunjul, as he will use it call someone who would confirm Chunjul's identity for them. Just then, Manhwa comes in to say that Chunjul doesn't need to do that, and that Manhwa backs Chunjul. Later, we see Manhwa telling everyone that she can't tell exactly who Chunjul is, but that she trusts Chunjul, and that if he had planned all this, he wouldn't have fought Si-hoo at first. Chunjul tells everyone that he is from the US, something he lied about to Manhwa to get her sympathy and trust. He told her that he had to hide his relationship with Si-hoo because of his parents. She then tells everyone that most importantly, Chunjul saved the arcade and made sure Mungyu's mom didn't get hurt. This makes Mungyu come forward and offer a hand of friendship to Chunjul, and they both bury their hatchet. Then Manhwa tells everyone to introduce themselves, and they do. However, Si-hoo still doesn't trust Chunjul and asks him to prove himself with the call as he said before, and Chunjul calls Gwangchul to do so. We see Gwangchul in a worried state. He says that something has gone extremely wrong. Chunjul says how he had saved the arcade, to which Gwangchul says the destruction of the arcade is what led to Mungyu becoming a police to investigate crimes. However, now that the arcade is saved, Mungyu has gone on to become a lifeless gamer, and all the investigations he did on Manhwa's case is gone. He then tells Chunjul that he has to make sure that the arcade is destroyed. So Chunjul now has to figure out how he needs to destroy the arcade even though he doesn't want to, knowing all the significance of the place. Just when he is processing all this new information, Park Si-hoo snatches the phone away from him and starts to talk with Jen, Gwangchul of the future. Upon first hearing the voice of his dear friend, Gwangchul tears up and thinks about how cool Si-hoo was as a person. Even though it is hard for him to comprehend, Gwangchul starts talking to Si-hoo and tells him that he is a very close and old friend of Si-hoo's dad. Si-hoo is kinda iffy about this, but Gwangchul starts spilling more details about their relationship, using his relationship as leverage. He talks about Si-hoo's childhood friend Gwangchul and their adventures. He also talks about the food Si-hoo's grandmother made, and that was enough for Si-hoo to believe him and allows Chunjul to live the night at his place. Chunjul follows Si-hoo to his home, but also feels tired from all the uphill roads of the past and the fact that he had several fights the day, including one that was against 10 people. Upon entering the house, Chunjul feels weird about the bad living conditions that they have, and also about Si-hoo having the latest phone model. As they settle down to have their dinner, they're watching the news, which says Park Ji-sing, one of South Korea's all-time great footballers, is a player from PSV Eindhoven. This makes Chunjul say that Ji-sing plays for Manchester United, a club Ji-sing would later join in his career, which makes Si-hoo tell him to not spit nonsense. As their dinner goes along, Si-hoo asks whether Chunjul is close to his father or not, to which he replies by saying that he barely has any memories of his father. Si-hoo says that he still feels jealous because Chunjul at least has someone to call a father. Chunjul wonders how this is the first time he is opening up to someone about his dad, and that person is his dad from the past. Even though he felt like punching him when they first met, he is slowly understanding him. After the dinner, Chunjul goes out telling Si-hoo that it is a part of his regular schedule. As he goes for a jog, he feels weird about just what he has experienced in a day, from going to the past, fighting his father, saving the arcade, to now being given the duty to destroy it again. If he doesn't do it, he won't be able to save his mother, because it has caused her murder investigation files to disappear. However, he is fairly confident that he can save his mother because he knows what will happen in the future, like the Park Ji-sung transfer. But he can't overuse it because it'll cause a big butterfly effect like the one with the arcade. Just as he arrives near the arcade, Chunjul sees the guys from Sam Silfam, whom he had beaten up before, but now they are with a rough-looking man who triggers some sort of memory for him from back when he was a kid. He hides from them and tries to think of who that person is, But it is not long before the rough-looking man finds Chunjul and approaches him. Chunjul is scared right away by the person and panics. Many of the group recognize Chunjul from the earlier fight he had with Park Si-hoo. One of the other guys tried to tell the rough-looking man about how Chunjul was the one who single-handedly beat up 10 of them. But that guy was punched right in the temple by the rough-looking man, taking him out. He says how the guy was bragging about getting beaten up and how he didn't like it. He then tells Chunjul that he looks like someone who works out and can fight, so he has a proposal for him. The man then proceeds to work Chunjul to a place with no one around, and they eventually arrive at a dark and empty warehouse. There he tells Chunjul that he knows that Chunjul saved the arcade due to ulterior motives. He thinks Chunjul is from another area trying to take over Gandong, but he doesn't care about it. He instead proposes that Chunjul join his side in destroying the arcade. That way, Chunjul can earn money from their slot machine business and also take over Gandong from Park Si-hoo. Chunjul agrees, knowing that this is his best chance to destroy the arcade, but he asks the person how he will destroy the arcade now that they've already tried once and failed. He says that they're used to sucking out the life of their enemies. They'll simply keep attacking them until they give up and lose all hope. Chunjul realizes that this must have happened after he saved the arcade. They kept on attacking them until one day the arcade crumbled. He learned from Guangchul that Mengyu went lifeless after being hit on the head, and he realizes that it must have happened during one of the attacks. He feels sorry for making the future worse than it already was and vows to fix it. He tells the person that he is ready, but he wants them to attack the arcade at that very moment because no one is around. The person laughs and tells everyone to turn the light on. It is then revealed that the warehouse is full of his people. He tells Chunjul that if he had disagreed with his offer, they would have killed him right away. They then move on towards the arcade to destroy it. Chunjul is okay with it because, with no one present, it will be easy to destroy the arcade without causing anyone to get physically hurt. Just as they're about to proceed, Manhwa grabs Chunjul's arm, asking him just what he is doing alone at night. This makes the rough-looking person approach Manhwa and talk to her rudely and inappropriately. He asks weird questions about Manhwa and Si-hoo's relationship, and Chunjul thinks that it must be one of his mom's lovers. Chunjul then creates separation between the two, trying to move on with the plan, but just at that moment, Manhwa spits on the face of the man, calling him Shintao-gi and asking just how long will he keep living a life like this. This heats up the situation as Shintao-gi gets mad. Despite getting angry at Manhwa for spitting at him, Shintao-gi doesn't attack her. Instead, he calls her a whore, which angers Manhwa and even Chunjul, but he manages to keep it under control to move forward. Next up, we see Mengyu and his mother cleaning up the mess that the goons made previously and talking about what to do. Mengyu wants to report these thugs to the police, however, his mother doesn't want him to do that, as that might cause more issues in the future. However, at that moment, we see the thugs enter the scene again to start the destruction. Mengyu rushes to them, but is shocked to see a guy with a helmet wearing the same jacket as Park Chunjul. Mengyu uses his judo skills to his fullest to take down the helmet-wearing thug. He stomps his head to break the visor, and to his surprise, it is not Park Chunjul. We learn that Chunjul is not going to be directly involved, but instead will be keeping tabs on what happens outside and inform them when needed. But they took his jacket as collateral just in case of a turn from Chunjul. We then see two thugs approaching Chunjul with baseball bats. However, Mengyu isn't one to back down, so he wants to fight. But the thug uses a baseball bat to hit Mengyu in the midsection. Mengyu tries to retaliate but is struck down by several baseball bat blows. He is hit on the neck, back, and head with the bat till he is struck down. Meanwhile, the other thugs are destroying the arcade machines one by one. One of the thugs also pushes away Mengyu's mother. Mengyu is broken down as he is left helpless with no ability to do anything. But just at that moment, Chunjul comes in to tell everyone that the police have arrived. This causes panic among the thugs, as they quickly evacuate the arcade. We then see a flashback with Chunjul thinking that the arcade doesn't need to be destroyed as long as Mengyu becomes a police. But Mengyu needs a reason to become the police, so he orchestrates this act to show the power of the police in protecting the people from these thugs. Back on, we see Chunjul telling Mengyu that he needs to become a police officer to protect his mother and the things he cherishes, because these thugs are scared of the police. We then see two thugs from before coming back, angry from knowing that Chunjul lied about the police, but this time, Mengyu takes them both by the skull and slams them straight onto the floor. Mengyu then vows to become whatever is necessary to protect his mother and the arcade. As more and more of the thugs come back in, we see Mengyu taking them all out with his judo skills and stiff lariats. We then see Taiki talking to himself about how strong Mengyu is, but behind him stands Chunjul. Taiki squares up to him, ready to take him on for the double cross. However, Chunjul is ready to beat up Taiki for what he has said before. He asks Taiki to say what he has said to Manhwa again. We then see Chunjul taking a fighting stance, promising to hurt Taiki for what he said to his mother.
We see Chunjul and Taiki squaring up to fight. Taiki goes in for the first attack of the duel. He tries to hit Chunjul with a hard roundhouse kick, but Chunjul's guard is too strong to be penetrated. Taiki immediately follows it up with a spinning heel kick, which is once again blocked by Chunjul using his forearms. Taiki realizes that Chunjul is stronger than he thought. We get to know that Taiki is a former national-level taekwondo athlete, hence he attacks mostly with his feet. On the other hand, we see Sihu gathered with his friends, discussing how he hasn't seen Chunjul after he had dinner at his place. They're wondering what could have happened. They also think about what happened to Manhwa, who hadn't shown up yet. It is then that they notice a unit of police going somewhere. They soon realize that the police car is going to the same direction as to where Manga's arcade is. Back to the fight, we see Taiki land a hard back on Chunjul, which is mostly blocked by him. However, the sheer impact makes Chunjul go hit his back against one of the arcade machines. Taiki then trash talks with Chunjul, asks him whether or not that is all Chunjul had or not, despite being so full of himself. Chunjul tries to retaliate with a left jab to Taiki. However, a slight momentary hesitation allows Taiki to dodge it. Right away, Taiki tries to strike with a knee, which is blocked by Chunjul, but he wastes no time in going high for a kick to Chunjul's face, which is also blocked but dealt damage to Chunjul's arms. Chunjul is taken aback and he wonders just why he feels a sense of danger whenever Taiki is around, how Taiki's presence can make his body flinch, which is reason why Chunjul's hits haven't landed on the guy yet. It is then that Taiki calls Chunjul a crazy F-word. This seemingly triggers a memory from the past for Chunjul. Chunjul thinks of the time when he and his parents visited their maternal grandparents' place. That is where his uncle, mother's brother, misbehaved with them and called them the crazy F-word. He went on to say that he didn't want to consider Chunjul and his parents his family and that he would rather have them go away. Chunjul thinks to himself, despite the similar usage of words and a similar accent, there's no way that this guy could be his uncle. Meanwhile, Taiki tries to hit Chunjul with an axe kick, but Chunjul dodges, which makes Taiki break an arcade console with his kick. Chunjul thinks of the past again, where he sees his uncle betting on a football match and calling someone to get a massage done. A very young Chunjul would stand just outside the room, which would piss his uncle off, and he would attack Chunjul. It is then that Chunjul realizes that it is indeed Shin Taiki who was his useless and abusive uncle. Taiki warns Chunjul, calling him sly for his quick dodging, but says that even if Taiki manages to land one of his blows, it will be game over for Chunjul. Chunjul connects the dot and understands why all these strikes feel familiar and that Taiki wasn't hitting on his mom, he was just making fun of his younger sister. Chunjul is conflicted, wondering what he should do. It is then that Taiki charges in saying that he knows more than kicking and that he will take Chunjul out. Chunjul then lands a picture-perfect left cross to the temple of Shin Taiki. Everyone is shocked, including Manga, who wonders just why the strongest of Sangil is getting beaten up as we see a flurry of punches being landed by Chunjul on Taiki. Chunjul thinks this is the greatest thing ever as he always wanted to attack his uncle for physically assaulting him when he was a kid. Chunjul eventually locks Taiki in a rear naked chokehold. Chunjul tells him there is no point in resisting as no matter what Taiki would do, he can't get out of it, he might even die if he tries too much. We see Chunjul choking him out eventually as Manga, who has two opponents by their throats as well, wonder just how this unknown guy managed to beat Shin Taiki. Later on, we see the police arriving to the scene, arresting the people of Taiki's gang for launching an unprecedented and unwarranted attack on the arcade. Manga's mom explains to one of the officers what actually went down during the whole commotion, and we see that the media has also arrived at the scene to cover this gang violence case. We later see Shin Taiki being taken away by the police as he screams out saying that Chunjul was the one beating him up and that he was nothing but a victim in this whole scene and that he needs a lawyer. We then see Chunjul talking to Manhwa and praising him for doing a great job by calling the police and how that helped it all. We learn that earlier it was Chunjul who told Manhwa to call the police. Manhwa tells Chunjul that she's just glad that things went according to Chunjul's plan and now that everything is safe and the arcade hasn't been destroyed. We then see Sihu and his group coming to the scene, all raged up. Sihu sees Taiki talking trash as he is being taken away and gets more pissed off. He vows to kill Taiki off for good. His friends try to calm him down because there are police there, but to no good results as Sihu is hellbent on finishing off Taiki whether he is Manhwa's brother or not. Chunjul comes to intervene. He stops Sihu, but Sihu is still mad because of what Taiki had done to Mungyu and his arcade, but Chungil tells him to calm down and listen to what Mungyu has to say. We see the media interviewing Mungyu about the incident. They ask him how he dealt with the attack and how he managed to fight back with bare hands. He says that he just did what should have been done. The interviewer further asked that because Mungyu is a high schooler, what are his aspirations, to which Mungyu said that he wants to become a police officer to defend people. Chungil then tells Sihu that he should restrain himself, if not go and congratulate Mungyu for overcoming the attack and also finding his dream. He also says that he helped protect the arcade, but he doesn't want any praises, but wants to borrow Sihu's phone to call his father, which is a lie he tells to call Guangqiol of the future. Meanwhile, in the future, we see Guangqiol going to the police station again to ask if there was any police officer by the name of Choi Mungyu. The officers there get angry at him for asking the same questions and says that he will lock Guangqiol up if he keeps bothering them again and again. As Guangqiol is walking out of the station, he bumps into a big beefy man, the man in none other than Choi Mungyu, who is now a police. Guangqiol is happy and asks Mungyu if he had finally become a police officer. However, Guangqiol can't help but be flabbergasted by this sudden transformation of his friend, Mungyu. The last memory he had of him was rather sad, as Mungyu had become an out-of-shape, lifeless gamer. Mungyu smiles and tells Guangqiol if he doesn't remember the day where Mungyu was reborn, referring to the day when the arcade was attacked. He says that was the day he vowed to become someone who would protect others, so he will now protect his mother, village, and everything. Guangqiol still can't help but be surprised by this sudden glow-up. Mungyu further adds that he chose to walk a different path since that day, and now he has become a promotional figure for the police station. Guangqiol wonders just what Chungil had told Mungyu for him to become so motivated at being a police officer. Mungyu then shows off a rather risque topless photo shoot of himself, which somewhat disgusts Guangqiol. Guangqiol then comes back on topic, asking whether or not Mungyu remembers the whole situation with Min Hui's case. Mungyu tells he very much does and that he can't forget. He tells that Min Hui's parents had come to the police station to tell them to stop investigating the case, and because they're the parents, they decided to stop. Guangqiol feels relieved knowing things have gone back to how they were. Guangqiol then asks Mungyu if he could give him the files for Min Hui's case again, or if there was any new information that was uncovered that Guangqiol doesn't yet know about. Mungyu asks Guangqiol whether he still hasn't give up or not. He then tells him that he understands the sentiment and would investigate the case again, but he needs to be prepared because this is not the Mungyu of the old, so this case will be investigated in a much more mature and serious manner. Back to 2003, we see Chungil trying to call modern-day Guangqiol, but to no avail. We then see the 2003 Guangqiol asking Sihu if it is really okay for him to keep lending his phone to Chungil, to which he says that he already has enough things to worry about than this. Another one of his friends add that Chungil doesn't seem like a bad person, but he still hides a lot of things, but that isn't much of an issue because he isn't causing them any harm. We see Mungyu arriving to scene. His friends tease him by calling him the people protector and a future officer, but he brushes it off and asks Sihu if he still distrusts Chungil. Siha says he kinda finds him a bit weird and mysterious, but Mungyu says that Chungil has already helped him twice, so he won't be going against him ever again. We then see Chungil returning Sihu's phone, saying his father didn't pick up. Sihu wonders just what is up with Chungil, cause despite seeming like a good person, there is something off about him. They then wonder where Minhui is, and we see Minhui at the prison, talking to her brother Taiki. She asks Taiki just what is he doing and whether or not he likes living like a trash. Taiki tells her to piss off. She then asks whether Taiki wants to start his own gang or what. Does he really not even care Taekwondo, which he loved and was a national team member at one point? Taiki gets pissed again, but we see Chungil arriving to the scene. We see Chungil stand beside Minhui and tell her that nothing would get into the head of a person like Taiki. He then tells Taiki that people get to live once and that they eventually die, and Taiki just wants to waste his life being a thug. He clearly doesn't realize the magnitude of his crime. He tells him that he was starting a rigged gambling game, which would put him behind the bars for 5 years. Taiki is shocked but says that it isn't anything illegal. The last time he checked, the Story of the Sea, which is the name of the game, is considered a legitimate arcade game, hence why it is not a gambling game. Sihu then realizes that the game would eventually be considered an illegal gambling game in the future, but at this point it is still legal, so he can't do anything with that. We then hear a mysterious voice asking Chungil how he knows about the Story of the Sea game and its connection to gambling. We see Taiki getting nervous upon seeing the person, asking just why is there. Chungil wonders who this person is. Meanwhile, in the modern day, we see Guangqiul and Mengyu inspecting near a building. Guangqiul tells that he expected something grand when Mengyu said this will be a serious investigation and if this was it. Mengyu tells him that the public's tax shouldn't be wasted rashly. Mengyu also tells that he feels very anxious coming back to this building where Manhwa had passed away. He also has a promotional screening soon. He says he made a fake warrant case to investigate here and that if someone finds out, his salary would decrease. Guangqiul feels at ease hearing all this. Mengyu then tells him that they will first investigate who benefited the most from Manhwa's death because if it was a murder, there must be some sort of motivation for them to carry it out. Guangqiul questions if someone would go so far as to murdering her and Mengyu tells that he thinks there might be a few people who would but they're all members of the Gold Castle faction now, which is a very influential group. Guangqiul asks if that's the same faction with Kwok Dongo in it as the action head. Mengyu confirms it to be so. He asks Guangqiul if he remembers all the things Dongo had done to Sihu after joining the faction. That's why Mengyu wants to investigate Dongo first. Guangqiul wonders if Dongo is involved in all this, then it must mean that he has already gotten involved with Chungil back in 2003. Back to 2003, we see the mysterious person is none other than Kwok Dongo, who wonders who Chungil is, and as he is standing next to Manhwa, it must mean that he is on Sihu's side, but as he has never seen Chungil before, he is more curious as to what kind of connection he really has with Sihu and company. We see a flashback depicting the life of Kwok Dongo, the action head of the Golden Star faction. We see Dongo sleeping in his classroom despite the class going on and a teacher being present. The teacher keeps telling Dongo to wake up but to no avail. He was nicknamed No Touch for his delinquent behavior and outright denial to get along with other people in any way. We then see Kwok Dongo playing pool and bumping into a senior delinquent. While doing so, the senior calls him names and says that the current generation has no respect for elders and are ignorant. He then says that he should pick out a day to teach these young kids a lesson. Just then, we see Kwok Dongo using a ball from the pool table, wrapping it around a piece of cloth and hitting the senior with it across his head. This leaves the surrounding all bloodied up. Basically, he was already a thug in the making even at school. We see him giving a card of the Gold Star faction to his teacher, showing him that he is joining the faction and that soon he won't be coming to school. The teacher is bothered by this and wonders what will happen to Dongo at this rate. Then we see Dongo, who is walking in the school alley, running into Park Sihu. Kwok Dongo asks Sihu why he's there and Sihu questions if Dongo was seriously gonna leave school. Dongo tells Sihu that he was indeed going to leave school because his aspirations don't align with coming to school. He tells Sihu that both him and Sihu are poor and that there is no point in them studying. He says he will become Gold Star faction's #1 and if Sihu ever wants to change what he is doing now, he can hit up Kwok Dongo. Sihu tells Dongo that he has no interest whatsoever at changing. Kwok Dongo asks Sihu again to reassure and Sihu tells him again that he isn't interested. He then says that he is disappointed that Dongo is dropping out of middle school just to join some gang. He tells him that he has no interest in hearing what Dongo has to say and he doesn't want to become a thug. Kwok Dongo smirks and says it's fine. He tells Sihu to not come back to him because he already gave him a chance and Sihu rejected. So Sihu can go back to playing house with his friends while Kwok Dongo can go on to become actually successful in life. Now in 2003, we see Taiki thanking Kwok Dongo, telling him that he is thankful for the help and that without the help, he would be suffering now. He also tells Dongo to tell good to the higher-ups. Kwok Dongo shuts him up immediately, telling Taiki it was Dongo's fault for letting Taiki handle this arcade business to begin with. Taiki tries to apologize, but Kwok Dongo tells him that from now on, he himself would be taking care of the arcade business. Taiki asks what he will be doing, to which Dongo tells him to lay low and reflect on his actions and told him to leave the scene as he wanted to have a private discussion with Chungil. Kwok Dongo then reconfirms with Chungil that Chungil only did this because he owed one to the arcade owner. That he only happens to be a mere acquaintance of Park Sihu and nothing more, and he only fought the group of thugs because of his connection with the arcade owner. Dongo says he understands before snapping out and jokingly says, "You expect me to believe that?" Before seemingly going in for punch to Chungil, but he stops near his face. Chungil is unfazed by all of this and Kwok Dongo emphasizes how Chungil, who is trying to come off as ordinary, isn't even scared by an attempted punch to the face. Chungil replies by saying that Dongo's hips aren't properly rotated. This pisses off Dongo, who rotates his hip fully and throws the punch, which is waxed off by the left hand of Chungil. Kwok Dongo then throws a left jab, which is cross-blocked by Chungil. As Kwok Dongo keeps throwing a fast combination, Chungil gets mad and throws a lead hook too, which is easily dodged by Dongo sidestepping. A police tries to intervene seeing these two fight at a police station, but another officer stops him and warns him about Kwok Dongo being a member of the Gold Star faction. He tells him to let them off with a warning. Meanwhile, Kwok Dongo and Chungil keep fighting. Chungil, as Dongo keeps throwing relentless lefts and rights, wonders if everyone from his dad's era knew how to box because Dongo is boxing very well. Chungil, however, with his MMA knowledge deduces that the boxer would be weak to a low kick. He thinks that despite most modern boxers are aware of this tactic, a boxer from the past would be susceptible to it. And just then, Chungil throws a low kick which was dodged by Dongo and followed up by a punch to the face which leaves Chungil bloody. Dongo then throws a punch to Chungil's kidney. It is then that Chungil realizes that Kwok Dongo is called No Touch because not only can't you touch him, but even reach him because of his tremendous speed. However, Dongo is impressed that Chungil is still standing after the 2 blows he landed. He says the only other person to keep standing after being attacked by him is Park Si-hoo. He gets more curious as to who Chungil really is, but the police officer comes in to stop them. The officer says there are eyes on them and that they shouldn't be doing this at the police station. Chungil is pissed off by the obvious bias from the police officer. He wonders if police officers were more corrupt before. He also thinks the name of the officer, Bong Jaidong, is very tacky. We then see in 2021, Bong Jaidong is now the station chief and he calls Mungyu to ask him why he left with a fake warrant. Mungyu explains it to the chief, telling him how he is reinvestigating Minhue's case. The chief asks why he is worried about a closed case, to which Mungyu says he feels like he missed something. He wants to investigate the Gold Star faction and Kwok Dongo in particular. He also requests the chief to not stop him. The chief smirks and says that he won't stop him and that he should try to catch a thug and more police officers should follow his lead. Mungyu is very happy by this response, but Gwangcheol feels it is fishy how the chief isn't pissed about him reinvestigating a closed case and even making a fake warrant. Meanwhile, in the chief's room, we see him asking Kwok Dongo himself about what he should do about Mungyu and if he remembers what kind of person Mungyu was. Dongo says he doesn't remember anything besides the fact that Mungyu was one Si-hoo's friends, and besides, if he finds something memorable about someone, he adds them to the faction. Back to 2003, we see Dongo trying his best to recruit Chungil to the Gold Star faction. He tells him how good he is and wants to know where he came from and which school he goes to. Right then, we see Si-hoo creeping up behind Dongo, calling him out for letting Taiki loose on the arcade. Dongo says he already told Si-hoo that he would attack Si-hoo if he touches him, and he lashes out and tries to attack Si-hoo with a post. However, Si-hoo dodges and throws a punch at Dongo with a handcuff wrapped around his knuckles, which Dongo dodges, but the punch damages the wall behind him. Chaos erupts as the two look like they're gonna come to blows. We see a flashback to when Kwok Dongo and Si-hoo fighting a bunch of goons back when they were in middle school. We see Kwok Dongo doing his inner monologue. He talks about how he wants to be at the top and win every fight he is in, but people need other people to succeed in such fights, and then we see their others friends like Gwangcheol joining in on the fight, which leads to Si-hoo and Kwok Dongo winning the fight. After the fight, we see an adult coming to the scene and asking if Si-hoo and Ko are middle schoolers. He introduces himself as a member of the Gold Star faction. This makes Kwok Dongo think he can finally go to the top of Korea by becoming a member of the powerful Gold Star faction. However, soon it dawns on him that it wasn't Kwok Dongo that was being recruited by the Gold Star faction member, but it was Park Si-hoo. Kwok Dongo is left devastated, however he still gets shocked when Si-hoo drops the card and refuses to join the Gold Star faction. Kwok Dongo questions Si-hoo's sanity in rejecting an offer to join such a big and powerful faction. However, Si-hoo explains that he doesn't fight to show off his power or dominate. He fights to protect the friends and the loved ones. Si-hoo then leaves with Minhui, leaving Kwok Dongo all pissed. Back to the modern day, we see Kwok Dongo swinging the pole to try and hit Park Si-hoo with it, however he dodges it. Si-hoo then kicks away the pole, leaving Kwok Dongo weaponless. Dongo continues his inner monologue, saying that Si-hoo has always been like this. He always thinks he is better than everyone else, but he isn't better than Dongo. We see Dongo throwing a lead hook punch to Si-hoo, who dodges it. Dongo then speaks out loud, calling Park Si-hoo a disappointment. Says that despite having some use in the past, he is basically useless to Dongo now and that he should have been the one to get the Gold Star faction card that day. He says he is on a whole different level as to Si-hoo now and launches a barrage of punches. However, Si-hoo dodges them all with head movement and steps aside on the final blow and tells Kwok Dongo that he has misunderstood the meaning behind no touch all along. That he is only called no touch because Si-hoo never fought him properly and throws a haymaker punch which is dodged by Dongo. Shin Minwi intervenes and shouts for them to stop. Minwi asks if Kwok Dongo was crazy because what he was doing on police ground was crazy. She says that Sihu did nothing wrong in this altercation because after all, it was Kwok Dongo's friend who attacked the arcade unprovoked. This angers Kwok Dongo beyond limit as he quickly slips past Sihu using his otherworldly agility. He goes on to try and hit Shin Minwi with a punch because he is mad at how she is always on Sihu's side and because she always talks a lot. Before the punch could hit her though, Chungil comes in to grab Kwok Dongo's fist to save his mother. Chungil intercepts and angrily asks Kwok Dongo why he tried to attack Miss Minwi, almost calling her mom in front of everyone during the heat of the moment. Kwok Dongo isn't one to back down either. He is mad at Chungil for butting into what he considered his own business. He also wonders to himself why Chungil is doing it and how he managed to stop him now when he couldn't keep up earlier. He asks Chungil why he feels the need to get himself involved in someone else's matter when he isn't even close to Park Sihu. He tells him to stay in his lane. Chungil, still defiant, tells Dongo that he isn't just gonna stand and watch a properly trained fighter attack a normal citizen. He also calls out the police, asking if he doesn't see the violence and ruckus being caused by Kwok Dongo. The police shows anger himself, telling them to stop taking advantage of the police's leniency and to stop immediately. Kwok Dongo thinks he has had enough and just walks off from the scene, telling everyone to piss off. He further tells everyone that his words won't ever get into the heads of children like them who like to play the role of superheroes protecting their hometown. And he particularly tells Minwi that she should be alert at all times and be on her toes because he will definitely kill her one day. This severely angers Chungil, who is mad at Kwok Dongo for saying that he would kill his mother in front of him. However, he soon realizes that Dongo hates his mother and threatened her openly, and being a member of a big faction puts Kwok Dongo under suspicion. Chungil also remembers John Guangcheol of 2021 telling him that he has a big doubt about his mother being murdered and that he had to look for clues as to who would do something like that and for what reason. He decides to put Kwok Dongo on his suspects list. He then walks up to his father, Park Sihu, to ask for his phone to call John Guangcheol of the future. He says to Sihu that he doubts his father is somewhat concerned about his well-being, so he needs Sihu's phone to call him and tell him that he is fine. As Sihu is offering him the phone, he snatches it away from Sihu's hand quickly and creates some distance with the group to make the call. As he calls Guangcheol and starts talking to him, Sihu wonders just what Chungil is hiding and that he wants to uncover it someday. On the phone call, Guangcheol tells Chungil that he was waiting for the call and if everything was going fine. Chungil wastes no time and informs him of his recent run-in with Kwok Dongo of the Gold Star faction. Guangcheol is shocked hearing this and informs Chungil that he is currently investigating Kwok Dongo. Chungil is shocked by this sudden information and wonders to himself that this must be really connected to his mother's death if Guangcheol of the year 2021 is investigating this. He thinks that this is probably him slowly putting together a puzzle piece by piece. Guangcheol tells him that things are different in the future and that Kwok Dongo isn't as accessible to him in the future anymore. So for his next mission in his quest to solving his mother's death mystery, Park Chungil needs to befriend Kwok Dongo and make him join Sihu's little group of friends. Because if he had been the one to murder Shin Minwi, it must have been because he hated Sihu and his group to death. So for him to not do that, the best option for them would be to become friends, and only Chungil can make that happen. Chungil is really overwhelmed by this new mission of his and wonders if this is even possible for him. After the whole scene, we see Park Chungil lying down next to his father, Park Sihu. He takes in the feeling of all the things that have gone down during the entire day, from the fights to now lying beside Sihu. Chungil also thinks about Guangcheol of 2021 said about Kwok Dongo and his involvement in the mysterious death of his mother. He also wonders just how he will achieve the new mission given to him by John Guangcheol, the mission of making Kwok Dongo friends with Sihu and his friend group. Especially after all the things that went down Dongo and the arcade, himself, Minwi, and his seemingly long-time history with Park Sihu. However, he wants to take it a step at a time, and he wants to do so by first getting close to his dad and his dad's group himself. Because that is the very first step in this long and dangerous game. The morning eventually arrives and we see Chungil sitting down in front of a table full of food. He asks what it is and Sihu responds by saying it is breakfast made by his grandmother because Chungil was sleeping till so late and that she went out after preparing the breakfast for them. Sihu then tells Chungil to start eating and they start doing so. Chungil thinks to himself that this is just the second time ever in his life that he is getting to have food with his father. That being said, he can't really enjoy anything about it because of the lack of peace he has been suffering from lately, worrying about Dango, Mungyu, his own mother, the arcade, and etc. Chungil then thinks about how he can start this all off. Should he start by making Kwok Dango and his father come on good terms? But that isn't really important right now. Perhaps he should start by first knowing what kind of person this Kwok Dango really is. Sihu sees Chungil distracted and asks whether or not Chungil has decided on which school to go to yet. Chungil nervously starts blabbering. He says that he has decided on a school already and that he is like this at the moment because he is still getting used to the jet lag. Chungil then tries to turn the table and asks Sihu why he didn't go to school despite being a student. It is 3 in the afternoon, yet he is at home, eating breakfast. Sihu then informs Chungil that it is Saturday and that it is a holiday. Chungil is surprised and wonders why is that. It is actually because South Korea only had weekly off days on Saturdays before, which was called Free Saturday for everyone. We then see everyone in Sihu's group hanging out together on this free Saturday. Chungil approaches Shin Min-wee to ask her about Kwok Dango. This instantly draws a reaction from everyone involved. They ask why he wants to know about someone like Kwok Dango. He says that he was curious since yesterday as it looked like Kwok Dango was once a part of their group. They answer saying that no one other than Sihu was ever close with Dango and that he was never really a big part of the group. He transferred out to a school in Dongdaemun, a place known for its fashion and clothing shops. He was cool to hang out with at first and would get along well with the group. However, it became clear pretty soon that he was going down a wrong path after he decided to leave the group out of his own choice. They tell him that they don't know much about him besides that. Chungil goes into panic after knowing that. After all, how is he supposed to get them back together again when they weren't even close to begin with? We then see the 2003 version of John Gwangcheol approach Chungil and tell him that despite whatever that happened with Chungil and Kwok Dango's gang, and despite him helping them out several times, Chungil is not a part of the group and that they will never be close with someone with a fashion sense like Chungil. Chungil can't help but be amused about how Mr. Gwangcheol is making fun of his fashion as Gwangcheol tells him how everything from his hair, clothes, and shoes are out of touch and that if he really wants to join their group and be buddies with them, he has to drop his stupid fashion. Despite being pissed, Chungil thinks of a plan that will get him to know the enemy better. He wants to go to Dongdaemun to investigate Kwok Dango. He tells Gwangcheol that he indeed is a nerd and that he doesn't know what it is like to have fun because all he does is work out. He tells them that he really needed a group of friends like them to get to know the world better, dress better, and become popular. He asks Gwangcheol to help him out in this quest. Gwangcheol smirks and says that if he really wants the help, he will help him. He tells Chungil to follow him because he knows the perfect place for a fashion noob like him. They take him to Dongdaemun, the place where every rich kid likes to go to and spend their money. The place known as the fashion capital of their nation. Gwangcheol then warns Chungil. He tells him to stay attentive because if he slacks off, people will steal his money. Chungil is facing major culture shock as he doesn't really understand what kind of place he is in. He doesn't understand the culture nor the lingo in which people talk as he has never seen this era before. However, he could tell at first glance from how chaotic the place is that it could be compared to hell. We see tons of fighting, argument, and other chaotic scenes as they walk through the market, but Lee Chan-ho, a friend of Sihu's, assures Chungil that they'll be going to a place they know and that the place isn't this extreme. Chungil feels a sense of deja vu as he arrives to a store called Lookism, reference to the author's previous work. The group greets the person they call Taejun Hyung with great warmth and respect. Park Taejun is the name of the author. Taejun asks them to check out the new lot of tank tops that have arrived and says that they should check out the blue ones. Gwangcheol tells Chungil to greet their Hyung elder brother properly as he is a legend of sorts in the area of Dongdaemun. Dongdaemun being historically divided between the fashionistas and the stealers, Taejun was once the leader of the fashion fam of the area. He tells Chungil that Taejun knows everyone and everything about Dongdaemun. Chungil asks if he knows Kwok Dango too, and Taejun comes close to confrontingly ask what he had just said. We then see people from other stores also coming to the scene upon hearing the name of Kwok Dango, asking if the troublemaker had made his way to the area. Chungil wonders just what did Kwok Dango do to warrant such a reaction. We then see a group of bullies taking money from a kid and stealing his shoe. It is then that a girl in their group informs them for the arrival of Gandong's Park Sihu, a well-known ulzang, a word to describe attractive students. We then see a rough-looking man getting all fired up at the thought of someone more attractive than him arriving to Dongdaemun. We see a montage of how Dongdaemun is the fashion capital of South Korea and that if you were even a bit into fashion, This was the place for you in the 2000s, a place where everyone could come and enjoy. However, wherever there is light, there is darkness as well, and that is also the case with Dongdaemun, as it is an area known for being very high on juvenile robbery. While it was common for young kids to steal money and bully other students, soon the crime scene really took off thanks to a certain Kwak Dongo. The era of the Dongbang delinquents began as Kwak Dongo advised the thieves to not only target school kids but also full-grown adults. As a result, the juvenile crime rate in Dongdaemun became one of the highest. It was a time of chaos, and so Park Tae-jun himself wanted to see who the leader of Dongbang delinquents was. However, it was also a time when the leader of Dongbang delinquents, Kwak Dongo, decided to transfer schools and leave Dongdaemun, giving the leadership away to the current figurehead duo. We see Park Tae-jun telling this story to Cha-gil, who finds it very shocking for something like this to have taken place, but he understands why Kwak Dongo is so hated now. Tae-jun adds that the Dongbang delinquents still pay taxes to Kwak Dongo because of his involvement with some gang. Anyway, Tae-jun further says that he knows that Dongo got close with a few people in Gandong. However, he is aware that he didn't get close with everyone in the group, and that is why he got along and became good friends with the group. Tae-jun then asks just what kind of clothes they want, and Gwangcheol tells him that they are here to buy clothes from Chung-gil. Tae-jun warns them that he wants cash, and Gwangcheol says that Chung-gil would handle it, but as he turns around, Chung-gil is gone. We then see Chung-gil thinking to himself while walking alone. He understands that Kwak Dongo got where he is today by starting a small group of thieves, and he already knows what he needs to do to get more information. He decides that he wants to get robbed. He thinks that by getting robbed, he will meet the Dongbang delinquents, and from there, he will be able to gain intel on Kwak Dongo. We then see a local competition going on about finding out the best dressed person. Chung-gil finds it absurd but also knows that he can use this as an opportunity. Just then, he gets called up to the stage. Chung-gil is initially shocked, but he is called above, so he joins the competition. Chung-gil thinks of this as a good opportunity and wants to play along to get to his destination. We then see the host asking everyone to introduce themselves, but Chung-gil finds it funny how something like this was considered a cool thing back then. Then the host asks Chung-gil to introduce himself, and Chung-gil tells everyone that he is from Gandong. The host tells him that he will get freebies cause the host is also from Gandong. He then asks for Chung-gil's name, which Chung-gil almost says but stops as he wonders if it is okay to do it. The host tells him it is fine if he doesn't want to reveal his name. Instead, they ask for his age, to which Chung-gil says he is 23. Chung-gil reconfirms to himself that all of this is to get a shot at meeting Kwak Dongo's friend. We then see the group looking for Chung-gil, Gwangcheol looking towards the stairs, and Sihu and Minwi looking at other places. Minwi is very worried as to where Park Chung-gil could really be and whether or not he will get into trouble. Park Sihu tells her it is fine, but things might get a bit dangerous. Minwi is still worried, and Sihu tells her it is fine again and that he doesn't get it why Minwi is worried for a stranger like Park Chung-gil. Minwi then finally tells Sihu the secret. She tells him that Chung-gil told her about being a secret member of Sihu's family. Sihu is shocked by Minhue's sudden revelation. We then see the start of the Who is the most popular competition. We see all kinds of people dancing in their own different ways. We also see Chung-gil pulling out some comical dance moves. The host tells him to move his hips more and also tells him that he dances in a bizarre way, probably because he hung out with some weird people. Anyway, the contest ends with Jonggro's hottest middle schooler Nam Hoyan picking up the win. We see Chung-gil admitting that he did enjoy parts of that event unintentionally, but is happy that his plan seemingly worked out as tons of delinquent-looking guys are checking him out. Just when he is about to leave, the host stops him and offers to give him the freebies. The host tells him to wait outside so that he can give Chung-gil the freebies. Soon after, we see a bunch of thugs, including the host, surrounding Park Chung-gil. They tell them that he is the target of the Dongbang delinquents. They call him the Ulzang from Gandong in a jacket. We then see the rough-looking man from before, calling himself the Ulzang of Dongdaemun, Hamgukyeon. He also asks Chung-gil if he is Park Sihu. Chung-gil is freaked out by this and wonders who this guy is. We then see another rough-looking guy coming from behind, asking if Chung-gil was Sihu. He is unimpressed by Sihu's looks and thinks that not only do they look better than him, but even Kwak Dongo looks better than him. We then learn that these two are twins and the figurehead leaders of Dongbang delinquents who are mad at Sihu for showing up. They then tell Park Chung-gil to strip, as that is the rule of Dongdaemun. He won't ask nicely again. The Dongbang delinquents keep asking Chung-gil to strip. They ask him to strip everything from his jersey to his shoes. Chung-gil seems conflicted about this as they keep telling him to do so. They ask Chung-gil if he knows Kwak Dongo, as he is from Gandong. This is when Park Chung-gil realizes that he is in the correct situation. He has been caught by people who are close to Kwak Dong-go, and it is his best chance to get information from them. Chung-gil asks one of the leaders if Chung-gil can have a private conversation with them. A physical conversation, as he likes to put it. Meanwhile, in the present day of 2021, we see John Gwang-cheol and Choi Mung-gyu enter the house in which Shin Min-wee passed away. The house has been empty ever since the day Min-wee passed away. However, they're back in the house to investigate her case again. They decide to check the synopsis of the case before starting again. The incident happened in August 21st of 2007 at approximately 1 a.m. The location was a house registered to Park Si-hoo's name in Gandong-gu, Seoul, South Korea. According to the witnesses, Min-wee had arrived home at 9:30 p.m. and that is when she started a fight with her husband, which continued till 10 p.m. Then at approximately 1 a.m. at night, Park Si-hoo left the house after the fight. Just after, the last call from Shin Min-wee, which was a 3-minute and 30-second call to her mother, was done. No further calls or messages were sent from her account after that. At about 4:30 a.m. in the morning, Park Si-hoo returned to the house to see his wife, poisoned by gas, laying on the floor. She was rushed to an emergency room, but at around 7:30 a.m. she passed away from the poisoning. The police concluded it to be a general case of suicide. Many blamed Park Si-hoo as it was the fight with him which probably caused her to take her own life. However, no one really knows that answer because Si-hoo fled after that incident. Kwak Dong-go holds a major key to the case. It is assumed that the fight was also about him. Dong-go held jealousy towards Park Si-hoo. So he always threatened Si-hoo, and Si-hoo tried to stay away, but Min-wee wanted it to be confronted and dealt with for Chung-gil's safety. This was the reason why they fought that day. Gwang-cheol says that despite this, Dong-go had an alibi that night, but Mung-gyu suggests that it could have just been a fake one. Gwang-cheol is shocked, but Mung-gyu explains that while he was making a fake warrant, he saw some stuff that could have traced back to the involvement of the Gold Star faction. They come to a conclusion that there must be a fraxia in the police. Someone who misleads an investigation. Just then, they hear footsteps and get scared. It is one of the Gold Star faction members reporting about Mung-gyu and Gwang-cheol. As Mung-gyu and Gwang-cheol walk out, they also notice Kwak Dong-go, who is present there himself. Dong-go observes the duo and says that he will kill them for restarting this old case. Mung-gyu and Gwang-cheol quickly walk out of the apartment. They're paranoid and are wondering how Dong-go got tipped off about them. However, this makes it sure that it was indeed the Gold Star faction behind the death of Min-wee. Gwang-cheol thinks to himself that no one other than Chung-gil can help them now. Back to 2003, we see Chung-gil locking in one of the Shin twins into an R-bar. Like before, this move has everyone surprised as they can't help but see it as an homoerotic action. The other Shin brother comes in and tries to attack Chung-gil, even though the rule of Dong Demon is to not interfere in a one-on-one battle. That being said, Chung-gil gets up and lands a devastating axe kick to his opponent, busting him open. He lands a couple of punches and goes into inner monologue. He calls himself not Park Si-hoo, but Park Chung-gil, the Korean mixed martial arts prodigy. Someone who was trained by Gwang-cheol in a sporty manner from a very young age. He has it running in his blood through his father, Park Si-hoo. And the fight with Park Si-hoo aside, Chung-gil has no losses. Being trained in the best modern martial arts, MMA, Park Chung-gil won't just lose to nobodies like the Shin twins as he beats them both to a pulp. He then gets up and tells everyone who are freaked out that he isn't Park Si-hoo, however, he was looking for them. He asks them about Kwak Dong-go. Everyone goes into panic, but one of the girls tries to message Kwak Dong-go about this. Chung-gil catches her trying to message Dong-go and snatches her phone. He makes fun of the old phone design before reading the message, which was intended for Dong-go. The message was telling Dong-go that a person from Gandong had beaten up the Shin twins. Chung-gil has a laugh about it before he edits the message and sends it to Dong-go himself. Park Chung-gil shows everyone the message he sent Kwak Dong-go, and it surprises everyone. They can't believe that he sent a message to Kwak Dong-go saying, "I miss you." The girl is blushing and worried because he sent that message. Park Chung-gil has a bit of fun teasing her, asking if her and Kwak Dong-go have a thing going on between them. He asks if she has a crush on him or hot. He also explains the reason why he sent the message to Kwak Dong-go. He says that he sent it so that Dong-go would come to the scene soon. Just then, one of the twins, Shin Sam, wakes up and creeps up behind Chung-gil. He says the fight is not over and hits Chung-gil with a shot to the midsection. Chung-gil bleeds a bit from his mouth, while Shin Sam tells him that he thought that Chung-gil must have been a fighter from Pride FC or K1, but that doesn't matter in Dong Demon because you have to wait for your opponent to get back up and fight till he can't anymore. Chung-gil gets back up and goes toe-to-toe with Shin Sam. They trade some blows. Chungil lands 2 very incisive kicks to Shinsam's knees, and when he goes down to a knee, he lands a sharp front kick. Chungil says he is willing to fight the Dong Demon way, and the two start going at it, blow for blow, matching each other. On the other hand, Siho is confused about this whole situation, with Chungil claiming to be his family. He asks why Chungil said that to Minwi of all people, and what kind of family even is he. Minwi tells him that Chungil told him to hide the fact that they were family, but she knows that Chungil is a hidden member of his family. She tells Sihu that his father probably remarried and was close to Chungil during his final days because Chungil was so close in age to Sihu. Siho remembers a memory with his father, which seems to be his only memory with him. His father told him that the Park family have a deep history. Sihu has a slight mental breakdown as he wonders just what is going on. However, he quickly recuperates himself and decides to go find Chungil and ask him about this man-to-man. Back to the fight, Shinsam and Chungil are duking it out like an old hoss fight. Shinsam trash talks Chungil, says that him being undefeated and all makes no difference to him, and that the mistake Chungil committed will lead to dire consequences. The mistake here by Chungil being that he messaged Kwok Dongo to call him to Dong Demon. The Shin twins and the rest of the Dongbang delinquents don't want any more of Kwok Dongo. We go to a flashback where Kwok Dongo had seemingly beaten both Shinsam and Shinsang to pulps. He tells Shinsam to resort to using weapons against adults when they're losing. He tells them that no matter if someone is an adult or a school student, a weapon could beat everyone and scare everyone. Shinsam says that according to him, using a weapon might take it too far. This angers Kwok Dongo, so he beats down an already beat up Shinsam. He calls him incompetent for not being able to do such a basic thing. Shinsang can't stand this and is seen trying to attack Kwok Dongo, but he is also beaten up by Dongo. We then see the brothers following the orders given by Dongo. They commit robberies and collect the money to give Kwok Dongo to cut. They're doing it and are given goals by Dongo to reach every day. As the goal starts getting harder and harder to reach, and with Kwok Dongo bullying them into attacking and stealing from adults too, some of the kids are tired of it and try to use Kwok Dongo's criminal past to move him out of the school he is in and henceforth make him transfer out of Dong Demon. However, Kwok Dongo makes it clear that he still wants his cut given to him regularly even though he is transferring away. He also tells them that he will eventually come back and get them if things aren't moving right. They don't want him back, so they go full rogue and try to pay off the cut as smoothly as possible. And that is why Chungil calling Kwok Dongo is a mistake and Shinsam is mad because they don't want to face that man again. Chungil is pissed off by this. He can't understand why they're following the orders of a person they hate so much and are sucking off to him. Chungil goes all out and starts to take out Shinsam. His rage hits top as he uses an uppercut to the chest to knock Shinsam down for good. Before Chungil could relax, he sees everyone surrounding him. He wonders how he will deal with such a huge group. Surprisingly though, they all go down to their knees and accept defeat. They tell Chungil that they've lost and that from now on, Chungil is their new leader. Because in Dong Demon, the strongest leads and the loser submits. Chungil has another culture shock moment. He doesn't know why people were like this during the 2000s. However, he accepts the role even though reluctant. He then asks them if they're really not friends with Dongo, to which they say they're not. Chungil is conflicted now that the people he thought could give him intel on Kwok Dongo are not his friends. He does understand that Kwok Dongo has no redeeming quality and that he is as evil as they come. However, something randomly pops into his head which he calls to be the foolproof plan, a plan that will help him make Dongo a friend and a member of the Sihu fam. He asks everyone if they know about the Summit Wars. On the other side, we see the squad still looking for Park Chungil. They're worried about what must have happened to him. John Guangcheol in particular is very worried. He says that Park Chungil keeps disappearing out of nowhere on them. Just at that very moment, we see Park Chungil come to where Sihu and Ko are on the shoulders of Shinsang and Shinsam, being announced as Emperor Suyang, the 7th ruler of the Korean dynasty, considered a legend for his martial arts skill. Chungil proudly tells the gang that he has arrived. We then see what was going inside Chungil's head. Chungil talked to the Dongbang delinquents about their dislike for Kwok Dongo. He says that he understands why no one likes Kwok Dongo. He thinks to himself that Kwok Dongo must have been a golden boy, the kind of kid who are overly pampered by their parents to the point that they become arrogant and sporadic. No wonder why he has such an explosive personality. He then remembers a conversation he had with John Guangcheol of the future, where Guangcheol tells Chungil that Kwok Dongo has always been the competitive and jealous type. How he couldn't accept the fact that Gold Star faction chose Sihu over him initially. This is when he started hating on Sihu and when he started doing all kinds of bad work for Gold Star faction to get in and bet big within the ranks. Kwok Dongo has no friends and he only believes in hierarchy. He somewhat considered the Dongbang delinquents to be his friends despite also being the top of the hierarchy in that group too. However, once he was ratted out by one of the Dongbang delinquents, he lost belief in friendship altogether. That's when Chungil realized that talking to Kwok Dongo would be useless. He needs to be shown this shift in the trajectory directly. Chungil then gathers the Dongbang delinquents and Sihu fam in line, telling them about how they must work together to take out the mighty Kwok Dongo. The Sihu fam is shocked by this sudden move from Chungil. We then also see the fashion fam, led by Park Tae-jun, arrive to the scene. Chungil tells everyone that they're gonna be finishing off Kwok Dongo today. Park Tae-jun gets into a slight altercation with Shinsam. They almost get into a fight, but Chungil breaks it up. Shinsam explains that they're not on Kwok Dongo's side, they were only doing it because they were forced. Park Tae-jun then says that it is a bit of an overkill to gather so many people to beat up just Kwok Dongo, and Sihu agrees. However, Dongbang delinquents say that if the fight takes place in Dong Demon style, someone as strong as Kwok Dongo could sweep them all. Chungil tells everyone that they shouldn't expect it to be an all versus one fight because Kwok Dongo will surely be coming with some handy backup. We then see an angry Kwok Dongo come to the fighting area with tons of Gold Star faction goons. He is flanked by the top lieutenant Sun Kaiying as well. One of the Dongang delinquents tries to walk up to Dongo but gets uppercut into oblivion. Dongo means business because you don't message him, I miss you to mess with him. We see the Shin brothers stepping up next. Dongo tells them that he is aware of what those two were up to behind his back and then throws right crosses to both the brothers one by one and take them out. We then see him turn his attention to Park Sihu, someone he can't wait to fight, but Park Tae-jun steps up for the occasion, going face to face with a much bigger Kwok Dongo. We see a flashback of when Kwok Dongo had received that message from Park Chugil. He was playing pool with Taiki and Ko while he got the message saying, I miss you. Everyone started joking about Kwok Dongo having a girlfriend, but Kwok Dongo denies it, saying he isn't the type to be involved in girl-related matters. However, the messages keep coming in and it passes off Kwok Dongo. After arriving, Kwok Dongo had already beaten up a few guys including the Shin twins, and just when he found out that his arch-nemesis, Park Sihu, was right there, he was ready to pick a fight, but up stepped Park Tae-jun. Despite being a man with a frail-looking body, Tae-jun steps up and takes his shirt off to show Dongo all the battle scars he has. Tae-jun asks Kwok Dongo if he remembers him. We see a flashback of the Dong Demon delinquents bullying and trying to get money off of an elderly man. The man was resisting, so an angry Kwok Dongo came in with a wooden stick and beat up the man. He was mad because his group didn't properly attack the person because he was an adult. As they steal money from him, they realized that despite being a merchant, the person didn't have enough money on them. Soon, they realized the elderly person stopped moving after Kwok Dongo attacked him, and under panic, they fled the scene. The elderly man was rushed to the hospital and went into a coma. The elderly man was the uncle of Park Tae-jun, who was a much bigger and muscular man back then. Fortunately, Uncle did wake up about a month later, and Tae-jun, who had waited for the moment, asked his uncle who had done this to him. Initially dumbfounded, his uncle soon told him that it was a kid with a stick who had attacked his uncle. Park Tae-jun then went on a rampage tour, beating up every thief in the vicinity to know just who had done it. From one such person who he had taken down, Park Tae-jun received the information that it could have been done by the Dongbang delinquents and Kwok Dongo. He then got intel on Kwok Dongo being a member of the Gold Star faction. Tae-jun didn't waste any time and went straight to the main office of the Gold Star faction to meet Kwok Dongo. As tons of guards and many seniors of Kwok Dongo tried to stop him, they all felt the wrath of Park Tae-jun as he beat up everyone in his path. Kwok Dongo tells Tae-jun that he doesn't quite remember who he is, but he assumes that he was the person who had attacked the main office of Gold Star faction to get a piece of Dongo. Back to the flashback, we see that the numbers game eventually caught up to the brave Tae-jun as he laid flat on his chest in a lake of blood. The seniors of the Gold Star faction were impressed that Kwok Dongo had already found such a strong enemy and decides to promote him to action chief. After that, Park Tae-jun was admitted to the hospital in a life or death situation. His aunt told him to leave this extreme life and focus on a more peaceful life, hence how he has become now. Back to the fight, Tae tells Kwok Dongo that he should treat Tae-jun because he was the reason why Kwok Dongo got promoted to action chief. Kwok Dongo agrees and decides to treat Park Tae-jun with his fist. Dongo throws a jab, which Tae-jun slips past. This shocks Dongo, but he keeps punching, and Tae-jun keeps dodging with his incredible speed. Taejun also starts attacking, but Dango dodges them. Dango is surprised by Taejun's speed but doesn't think much of him and tries to take him out, but Taejun goes past him, uses a wall to perform a flip to blindside Dango. Taejun then throws a punch that was very close to hitting Dango, but this gives Dango the chance to land the shot he thinks will finish off Taejun. However, he doesn't get all of the body hook he lands, and it allows Taejun to lock Dango's hand under his arm. Then with Kwak Dango locked up, Taejun says that Dango should have been more careful around people like him, whose life goal is to only get back to Dango. As he says that, he land a thunderous punch to Kwak Dango's face, making him bleed, finally penetrating through the defense of Mr. No Touch. Kwak Dango wonders how him, who is never easily beat, who is never touched, and whose speed is unmatchable, was now suddenly hurt by a frail man like Park Taejun. This angers him beyond limits, and he starts hitting and connecting Park Taejun with body hooks and jabs to the face. Taejun still stays calm and continues to take on the blows from a much angrier and much faster Kwak Dango. On the other side, we see Sun Kyung, the top lieutenant of Gold Star faction, coming towards Sihu. He tells him that it has been a while since the day Kyung gave Sihu the invitation to join the Gold Star faction. Back then, Sihu told him that he doesn't want to be a gangster. However, here is Sihu involved in a fight between gangsters. He basically calls Sihu a hypocrite for being involved in this kind of stuff. Sihu goes in for a punch right away, but Kyung dodges the cross and gets ready himself. He puts on brass knuckles and gets ready to smack Sihu with it. Just at that moment, Chungil intercepts and lands a jumping push kick to the midriff of Kyung. This surprises Kyung, but Chungil tells him that he shouldn't be against a 2-on-1 when he is using a full-fledged weapon. So we see the father and son duo of Park Sihu and Park Chungil team up and get ready to fight Sun Kyung. Kyung goes in to attack them, but Siha lands a proper punch to his face and sending him back quite a bit. Park Chungil is ready to take Kyung out, but Siha warns him about Kyung, calling Kyung a strong foe. Back to the future of 2021, we see Choi Mungyu and John Guangcheol walking away from the tense moment they had with Gold Star faction. They wonder if the Gold Star faction are following them, and just when they say that, they find out they're surrounded all over by the people of Gold Star faction. Mungyu asks Guangcheol how many guys he can take on at once. Mungyu can take up to 3. Guangcheol says he got older and can take on about 2 guys. Just then we see the gangsters bringing out a knife and Guangcheol going back on his word, saying that he might not be able to take on even one of them. We then see the 2021 version of Kwak Dango coming out, asking Mungyu and Guangcheol if those two were friends of Sihu. He says they fought back in the days at Dong Demon, referring to the ongoing fight in 2003. John Guangcheol gets mad at Kwak Dango and directly tells him that Dango must have been the one who killed Minwi and is now trying to cover it up, all because he was jealous of Sihu. Dango smirks and tells something to John Guangcheol before telling his underlings to use knives to kill Guangcheol and Mungyu so they can send regards to their best friend. We cut back to the fight in 2003 where we see Park Chungil with a cut on his cheek, bleeding. The cut was made by Kyung, who is surprised that Chungil can fight but tells him to run away. However, we see Chungil throwing a fast and impactful combo to get back to Kyung. However, Chungil was stabbed by a knife around his chest by Kyung. Chungil goes down and Park Sihu is seriously worried about Chungil. Kyung says that Chungil should run away and tries to use his phone to attend to other businesses. Just then, Chungil kicks his phone away and tells everyone that he will never run away and that he must win this fight for everyone he cares about, for her, referring to Minwi, for her to have a better and longer life. Kyung is weirded out by this sudden declaration from Chungil. However, just as they're about to engage in a fight, we see Shin Minwi asking Chungil who had done this to him with a knife in her hand. Everyone is shocked as to why she is there, but Minwi looks very mad. She keeps asking who had done this to her family. Chungil suddenly remembers that his mother was always skilled at using a knife and that she had a nickname. The nickname being Cobra. We see a flashback of a bunch of boys trying to record an amateur video of them showing off their knowledge about the girls from nearby school. However, when asked about Shin Minwi, they drop their equipments and try to flee. They tell how dangerous of a woman Minwi is and how that is a name that shouldn't be taken in vain. Back to the fight, we see Minwi asking once again who had done this to her family while approaching Sun Kyung with a knife. Kyung is unfazed and warns Minwi by telling her that she shouldn't be acting all capable just because she has a knife. She stands no chance against him. Just then, Kyung starts backing away. He backs away because he saw the cobra. The cobra that signifies how dangerous Shin Minwi really is, and not just any cobra but a giant king cobra. As Sun Kyung is scared and is trying to back away, we see Siha land a cross right that takes down and bangs Kyung down to the ground. Sihu then tells Chungil to stop Minwi at all costs, and Chungil tries to do so, but just then we see Park Tae-jun fly past Minwi, all beaten up by the evil Kwak Dongo. Chungil wonders just what kind of monster this Kwak Dongo really is. Dongo thanks Tae-jun for warming him up as he moves forward and beats up countless amounts of people at once. As Dongo is moving forward, Siha steps up wanting to fight him. Chungil decides to stay out of it because this is a fight that is meant to amend the differences between Sihu and Dongo, so this needs to be one-on-one. Dongo tells Sihu that he isn't on the same level as himself and that he stands no chance. Sihu still takes stance, and to demonstrate that he is leagues above, Dongo tries to land a quick jab to Sihu, which was close, but Sihu dodged it. Then the two started going all out as they attack and dodge relentlessly. The spectators of the fight call it the fastest showdown they've ever seen. Heck, they can't even see it, that's how fast they're going. As some distance is created, Kwak Dongo asks Sihu just why is he doing this? Does he still want to show off to everyone that he is better than Dongo, he asks. Sihu honestly answers the question saying that he doesn't intend to show off to anyone about anything. For him it has always been the same, he just enjoys dueling with Kwak Dongo. Saying so, Siha starts doing the Dempsey roll, a boxing technique where you move your head side by side to slip past your opponent's punch and create an opening to throw a devastating counter-punch. Invented by the great boxer Jack Dempsey and popularized by Iron Mike Tyson. Kwak Dongo smirks and goes in to fight Sihu. However, Sihu dodges all of the punches and lands a flurry of punches himself to beat out Kwak Dongo. Chungil says to himself, even though they fought that day, the few sincere words said between the showdown seriously changed the future. Back to 2021, we see John Guangcheol and Choi Mungyu down on the ground, bleeding out from knife wounds. Guangcheol soon passes out wondering if that's the end for him. However, later, he wakes up in an hotel room and besides him is Mungyu. He asks Mungyu if he is okay and Mungyu says he is. Guangcheol thinks that Chungil must have fixed things and saved him, and at that moment, Kwak Dongo shows up and starts talking to John Guangcheol and Choi Mungyu in a very friendly manner. Guangcheol is left shocked and wonders what just went down. Story continues from where we left it off, and we find out that a man named Kim Cheol-min is doing a live stream on the internet in 2003. The man talks about being a cloth merchant in the fashion capital of South Korea, Dongdaemun. As he begins his live stream Q&A, he is asked several questions such as his name, age, among other things. He is also asked about his favorite actress, to which he replies by saying that it is Hang Jae-in, the popular Korean actress from the 1980s and 90s. Among such questions, one of the questions asked to him was about the most intriguing thing he saw with his own two eyes in person. Cheol-min thinks about it, before saying that it has to be a fight which he saw in Dongdaemun some time back. There we go to the moment, and we witness the ending moments of the grueling fight between Park Shir-hoo and Kwak Dong-ho. In the fight, we see some breathtakingly quick shots being thrown by both guys, and everyone watching that was stunned by how incredible the thing was. Eventually, in the fight, we see Park Shir-hoo take over thanks to his immaculate strength and will to fight. As this went on, everyone witnessed the dawn of a monster in the body of an high schooler, as they saw Shir-hoo beat the absolute living crap out of the untouchable Kwak Dong-ho. However, they had no idea how this moment would change their lives forever going forward, as an even bigger storm is to approach them. The story then continues from the point of view of Park Chungil, who sees that Park Shihu was standing tall after his victory. Kwak Dong-ho then slowly made his way back up, and he yelled out at Park Shir-hoo, asking him just why he always does him dirty like that. Park Shir-hoo answers to this in a stoic manner, saying that it is true that he has been doing him dirty, but that is because fighting is the only thing Shir-hoo knows, and that is how he always solves his biggest problems. That being said, Shir-hoo goes down on his knees and sincerely apologizes to Kwak Dong-ho. Shir-hoo then embraces Kwak Dong-ho in a hug, and this shocks Dong-ho to the core, as he didn't see this coming from the ever-prideful Park Shir-hoo. Park Shir-hoo then goes on to say that he is sorry for not being a good friend. He adds that despite the fact they were friends, he let Kwak Dong-ho stray away from him, into a lonely world, just because Dong-ho did something that was not nice. Shir-hoo says that as a friend, it falls within his responsibilities to look after his buddies, and guide them back to the right path, even if they are straying more and more away from it. However, he is sorry for not having the courage to help him through this issue. Park Chungil sees his father do this, and he can't help but break into laughter, as he realizes that his father had stolen these lines from corny TV shows. Chungil then thinks about how fighting was like romance back in the days. He wonders if the fists thrown in fights have the most personal meanings behind them, as he realizes that fighting someone is no different than being in a relationship. You fight, you discover things, and you make up for it and make up even stronger. Chun-gil appreciates the romantic aspect of going at it in a fight, which was more common back in the time of his father. However, what excites him the most is knowing that his mother, Manhwa, might finally be safe from losing her valuable life, and he can't help but celebrate that. Back to the future, we see that John Guangcheol and Choi Mungyu are sitting at the office of the Jimsongpa, and they are sitting right in front of the infamous Kwok Dong-ho. Kwok Dong-ho looks chill to them, and he asks them just why they are there, and if that has anything to do with the passing away of Shin Minhui. Kwok Dong-ho says that whatever it might be that they want to know from them, he is willing to answer them properly about it. However, they should be clear about what they want, and they should do it quick because he does not have any time to hang out with them forever. John Guangcheol takes a deep breath before he summarizes in his mind all the stuff that had happened lately and how much the future has changed thanks to Chung Il. First of all, John Guangcheol and Choi Mungyu are alive, which means that Chun-gil has done something to save the lives of both of them, and after that, they have somehow also managed to get into rather friendly terms with the notorious Kwok Dong-ho. And on top of it all, they are in the building of the Jimsongpa, and as much as he cannot believe it, they have involuntarily come to meet Kwok Dong-ho, and they are here to ask him about the passing away of Shin Minhui, so he has no real idea on to what extent the future has been tweaked or is still tweaking. However, as John Guangcheol is thinking about all this, he takes a quick look at the face of Kwok Dong-ho, and he unexpectedly break out into laughter. He just could not control it anymore, and started laughing out at Kwok Dong-ho's appearance. After choking on this topic for a while, John Guangcheol asks a confused Dong-ho just why did he have his front teeth missing and that it looked funny to him no matter how much he saw it. This statement had angered Kwok Dong-ho, who then gets close to John Guangcheol's face and told him if he had no idea about why his teeth are like that. He then further goes on to say that it is all because of the fight Dong-ho had with Guangcheol and his buddies on that particular day in Dong Demon. John Guangcheol is shocked after knowing this, and he wonders just what fight Kwok Dong-ho is referring to. Kwok Dong-ho explains to John Guangcheol how they had a fight back in Dong Demon, and how he probably doesn't remember about it, but that fight actually ended up making them friends again after a period of being enemies. Kwok Dong-ho then sarcastically went off, and stated that he doesn't even know why he is friends with such idiotic people such as Guangcheol. Meanwhile, Guangcheol is left wondering how they became friends, and suddenly then, what Kwok Dong-ho said to him before taking their lives in a different timeline came back to him. Guangcheol remembers how he yelled at Kwok Dong-ho in that timeline. He berated Dong-ho for how he took the life of Shin Minhui because he was always jealous of Park Shirhu. Kwok Dong-ho laughed the situation off and said that he has no idea what Guangcheol is talking about, but he gets close to him and tells him that he will let him know of a secret. Dong-ho then tells Guangcheol about how he didn't do anything to do Shin Minhui, and how that he didn't even intend to go to her house, and only went there because the police head. He told him about how it was suspicious that how Bong Ji-dong rose in the power levels within the police force after Shin Minhui passed away, and while that can be merely a coincidence, even a Jumseongpa number 2 like Kwok Dong-ho thought it was suspicious. Dong-ho then proceeded to tell Guangcheol that the information he gave him will go with him to the afterlife, and proceeded to finish him and Mungyu off. However, the timelines have changed, and in the current timeline, Guangcheol remembers all this and asks Mungyu, who is in the police force, about his boss Bong Ji-dong. Mungyu is shocked by this sudden question, but Guangcheol went on ahead asking him about what he knows about Bong Ji-dong. Mungyu then replied saying that Guangcheol is spouting nonsense, because Ji-dong had already left the police department years ago. Besides, he questions how Guangcheol even knows about this. Guangcheol is left shocked, but he realizes that this might have been an effect of the timelines changing. Kwok Dong-ho is also weirded out by the sudden mention of Bong Ji-dong, and asks Guangcheol why he brought up Bong Ji-dong, and he also let them know that Ji-dong had caused the Jumseongpa a lot of trouble in the past, before suddenly disappearing one day. Kwok Dong-ho then showed them the Naver search result for Ji-dong's name, and they find out from there that after leaving the police department, he became a politician. Kwok Dong-ho goes on about how Bong Ji-dong is a very cunning man, and that he managed to become a politician, despite having a messed up past behind him. John Guangcheol then realizes that despite the fact that the timelines have shifted so much, some things are still the same, and that despite everything Shin Minhui is still not alive. However, the one who took her life is way different than what they thought. He marks Bong Ji-dong as the main suspect behind the passing away of Manhwa. Guangxiu then wonders just what is Park Chung-gil up to, but what bothers him the most is the question that whether or not he will be able to do something about this when he is up against such a strong figure like Bong Ji-dong. Guangxiu then once again notices the missing tooth on Kwok Dong-ho and wonders how did Mr. Untouchable lose a tooth, and he ends up asking Dong-ho how he lost the tooth, stating that he doesn't quite remember the events of that fight. Dong-ho listens to this, and we go into a flashback, where we see a beat-up Kwok Dong-ho standing after a hard-fought loss against Park Sherhu. Ki-young asks Dong-ho just why is he behaving in that manner, and if he has lost his mind. Ki-young asks Dong-ho to hand over the knife to him, and that he will finish off everyone with that knife. However, Dong-ho hides the knife behind his back and refuses to give it to Ki-young. This pisses him off, and he then unloads on Dong-ho with a barrage of reckless punches which ends up bloodying Kwok Dong-ho. After the severe beat-up, Kwok Dong-ho spits away his front tooth, which got broken thanks to Ki-young's punches. And then he tells Ki-young that this should be enough for Ki-young to get satisfied, because he just broke Kwok Dong-ho's teeth, so he should stop now. That being said, if he is still left wanting to take the knife and attacking everyone, then Dong-ho will be left with no choice but to fight him. Ki-young is weirded out by Dong-ho's behavior and he backs out from the situation, whereas Dong-ho calls out Park Sherhu. Dong-ho then tells Sherhu that he shouldn't get any wrong ideas about him wanting to be friends with Sherhu and Ko again, but he wants to pay back Sherhu for being kind to him. Kwok Dong-ho says that he doesn't like being indebted to anyone, so if Sherhu ever needs anything in his life, he should call him, because Kwok Dong-ho wants to help Park Sherhu at least once in his life to get even. Back to the current time, we see that Kwok Dong-ho is thinking about how Sherhu never ended up coming to him for help, and that even now it's just his friends who are there for help. However, Kwok Dong-ho wants to help out. Dong-ho then tells John Guangxiu that about his front teeth, it's nothing special, so he doesn't need to know about that. Dong-ho then suggests that they get back on topic and discuss about the important stuff. The story moves on and we get to see Park Chung-gil celebrating on his own, because he is happy that his mother has been saved. He is also glad that he has managed to make the family solve out issues with Kwok Dong-ho, and he is happy with that even though the original goal was to make Kwok Dong-ho join the crew. It is at least good that he is not hostile. However, as he is celebrating, the fighting and blood loss from the knife blow takes a toll on him, and Chung-gil falls flat on the ground. Despite being hurt, Chung-gil is happy that he has gotten the job done, before he passes out. Meanwhile, Sherhu's crew go all over him to check if he is doing fine. As this all is taking place, Park Sherhu observes it all silently. Sherhu thinks about just who Park Si-hungil is and how he is related to him. Sherhu thinks about the time when Manhwa took him to a corner and told him about how Park Chung-gil is a long-lost brother of his and how Chung-gil came back from America to find him. Sihu confirmed from her that it was indeed Si-hungil who said this to her, and this pissed off Sherhu. Sherhu told Manhwa to not tell this to anyone else, while he is still wondering why did Chung-gil lie about all these things at the beginning, and if he did, then why is he now telling Manhwa that he is the brother of Park Sherhu? Sherhu then sees that Park Si-hungil is out for real, and thinks to himself that he will be taking care of this later. Later on, we get to know that Chung-gil is in the hospital. Everyone from the crew is also there, and the doctor tells them that while Si-hungil has not been seriously hurt by the stab, it was still very dangerous and could have turned out life-threatening. On the other hand, Park Sherhu, who is also present there, is wondering that if what Manhwa said was true, then it somewhat explains everything that Park Si-hungil has done so far. Because there would be no other reason for him to suddenly come looking for him and be so knowledgeable about him. However, what really is bothering Sherhu is the person Chung-gil talks to on the phone. The person was introduced to as Sherhu's father's friend. However, who is it really? Just as Sherhu is thinking this, Park Chung-gil suddenly wakes up from his unconscious state. Everyone is shocked by how quickly Chung-gil has managed to wake himself up, and Chung-gil himself is in a bit of a weird state, as the first thing he asks to everyone if he was cool during this whole fight. This weirds everyone out a lot, as they can't believe that this is the first question that Chung-gil asks after waking up from a stab blow, and Sihu is left wondering how he is the brother of someone like Chung-gil. However, Si-hungil is unbothered by all this as he thinks to himself about all the things he has achieved so far, and how it all went down according to his plan. Chung-gil then notices Sihu is standing in front of him, and so he asks Sherhu for his phone so that he can make a call to his father. Chung-gil tells Sherhu to hurry up and not make any weird faces, because he is the one who helped Sherhu reunite with his old friend. Sherhu agrees to give his phone to Chun-gil, but as he is doing so, he remembers that the voice he heard on Chun-gil's call wasn't that of his father's, so that would mean Si-hungil is not his brother. If so, Sherhu wonders why he is being lied to, but he decides to observe for now and let things move on. Sherhu gives his phone to Chun-gil and everyone is shocked by that, because Sherhu normally does not give his phone to anyone, and is usually very possessive about it. However, Sherhu tells them all that it is fine, and that it is just a mere phone in the end of the day, and that it won't wear out just by Chun-gil using it. Despite that, all of the crew are a bit shocked by this, but Chun-gil thinks that they are making it too big of a deal. Chun-gil then dials up the number of Mr. Guangxiol and calls him. Mr. Guangxiol picks up the call and worriedly asks Si-hungil if he is okay, because he heard a big fight went down in his timeline. Chun-gil says he is fine and asks Amar Guangxiol if his mother is doing fine, to which Guangxiol replies by saying that they still haven't been able to save his mother, and this saddens Chun-gil. John Guangxiol continued on though, and he told Chun-gil that despite that, they have managed to get hold of a very strong and influential ally. We then get to see how Kwok Dong-ho has set up his lackeys to help Mungyu and Guangxiol further goes on to tell Chun-gil that they have gathered news that the person who might have taken his mother's life is someone called Bong Ji-dong, and that they are going to meet him. Chun-gil realizes that Ji-dong is the dude from the police station whom they had encountered before, and that is when he hears the voice of Kwok Dong-ho calling Guangxiol, and he realizes that Dong-ho became their ally in the future. Guangxiol then tells Chun-gil that he needs to go and tells him to rest now, and let him do the work. After hanging up, Si-hungil thinks about Bong Ji-dong and how he might be involved, so he decides to ask the crew if they know who Ji-dong is, and no one in there does, so Ji-dong is sure that he is a third party in this situation. However, Chun-gil understands that in order to save his mother, he must take care of this Ji-dong guy. Just then someone shows up at the room, and it is none other than Kwok Dong-ho and Bong Ji-dong. One of Sherhu's friends notices Ji-dong's name badge and informs Chun-gil that the Ji-dong dude he was talking about has come. Chun-gil is shocked by this, but then we see Bong Ji-dong asking them if they were talking about him, because he was surely thinking about Chun-gil. Ji-dong then walks up to Si-hungil and grabs his collar and tells him that he was waiting for an opportunity to meet him. Afterwards, we see Bong Ji-dong asking Park Chun-gil just who he is and why can't Ji-dong find any intel on him. Ji-dong continues by adding that he researched about everyone involved in the Dong Demon incident. However, he could not just find any sort of information regarding Park Chun-gil, despite the fact that everyone else's information came out just fine to him. Ji-dong also ends up cussing at Park Chun-gil, which pisses Chun-gil off, so he asks just what kind of police officer verbally abuses a civilian. A young John Guangxiol asks Kwok Dong-ho just what this matter is about, to which Dong-ho replied by saying that he has no idea. Chun-gil is still mad at Ji-dong cursing at him, and he tells him that he will be reporting Ji-dong to the presidential house. As this is continuing, Kwok Dong-ho explains to Guangxiol about how Bong Ji-dong was a big supporter of the Jumseongpa or Gold Star faction, and that it was all going good. However, the recent fights in Dong Demon seems to have put him in major trouble. And that turns out to be true, as we see a livid Bong Ji-dong grabbing a hold of Chun-gil, and in pure anger, he tells him that it is because of guys like him at the Dong Demon incident that he just lost his job in the police department. This ends up shocking Chun-gil, as he realizes that this means that Ji-dong is no longer a police, and that could mean some major differences in how stuff will pan out in the future. Meanwhile, we go back to the future as we see Kwok Dong-ho inside his car, as he is making his way to meet the new Bong Ji-dong. As he is being taken there, Dong-ho's driver and subordinate ends up asking just what kind of person this Bong Ji-dong guy really is. He says that he has only heard about Ji-dong being a huge player in the political scene. However, he has no real idea about what kind of person he really is. Kwok Dong-ho then replied, saying that Ji-dong was a very greedy police officer in his time. However, he got kicked out of the police after the police learned of his connection with the Jumseongpa and Dong Demon incident. After that, Ji-dong ended up joining forces with the Jumseongpa and started working for them. He started taking over the gambling side of the Gold Star's business, and it was going great for him, because the underwater story game was a huge hit. However, Ji-dong was a greedy man after all, and he let his old ways get to him again, when it was found out that he was taking money away from the management fund to add to his own wealth. This is when the Gold Star decided to cut ties with him. After that, Dong-ho had learned that Ji-dong was leading a tough life, but it was later found out that he made his way into politics and got successful there. He still has no idea how Ji Dong made it to politics. The driver listens to this and says that there is a possibility that Ji Dong was sponsored by someone, because it is quite common for people in politics to get sponsored by a powerful third party. Kwok Dong-ho is a bit taken back by this, but he says that there is only one way to know about this, and that is by having a direct conversation with the man himself. The scene changes and we see that Kwok Dong-ho is in the room with Bong Ji-dong. Bong Ji-dong greets Dong-ho warmly, stating that it has been a while since he had seen the man, and tells him that because he is the number 2 of the Jumseongpa, he already knows that there is a huge reason behind his sudden appearance there. Kwok Dong-ho keeps it short and simple, saying that he is there to ask about Park Sher-hoo, and how he is not alive anymore, and not only that, but his wife is not alive anymore either. His wife's passing away in particular was under very suspicious conditions. Kwok Dong-ho then gets UPS and pulls away a curtain that was there, and we see a huge collections of drink boxes. Dong-ho tells him that his house is quite big and there is a lot of space for him to hide something there. He also further asks Ji Dong if he is still involved in such backhanded businesses. Bong Ji Dong gets up from his seat too, and he tells Dong-ho that he is still as suspicious as ever, and that those are really just normal drinks and nothing more, and that Dong-ho can take one before leaving the place. Dong-ho is then about to leave the place, however, as he is about to do so, Ji Dong stops Dong-ho and grabs his hand, before telling him that he knew that he will be coming to meet Bong Ji Dong, and that he is willing to let him know everything and satisfy his curiosities if he stays a little longer. Dong-ho replies by telling Ji Dong to let go off his hands first. As this is going on, we see that Mungyu and Guangxiol are sitting in an office surrounded by several gangsters, and they can't help but feel a bit uncomfortable about it. As the two of them are talking about that, Guangxiol receives a call, and he checks to see that the call is by Kwok Dong-ho. Guangxiol hurriedly picks up the call and talks to Jumseongpa number 2, and he asks him how the conversation with Ji Dong went. Kwok Dong-ho tells the driver to throw away the box of juice as he is entering the car. Then Kwok Dong-ho tells him that he got to know about all sorts of information through Ji Dong. Guangxiol in turn asks him if they got anything regarding the situation they are investigating, and Dong-ho agrees to tell him. But before that, he asks Guangxiol if there is someone rich among their friends' circle. Guangxiol thinks about it and comes to the conclusion that Chang-ho is one of their friends who is kind of rich. Dong-ho asks him if there is someone who is ultra-rich, to which Guangxiol says that he is not aware of that in any way. Dong-ho then goes on to tell him about the conversation with Bong Ji-dong. A flashback to the conversation between Dong-ho and Ji Dong is shown. There, we see Bong Ji-dong informing Kwok Dong-ho that he got sponsored to cover for the passing away of Shin Min-hui. He explains that this happened long after he had left the police force, and after the stuff with Jumseongpa as well. It was a tough time for him, so when the person came to him to cover for something in exchange of a sponsorship, he accepted the offer, and the passing away they wanted to cover for was the passing away of Shin Min-hui, so he made that happen. Kwok Dong-ho questions Ji Dong, asking why would the person who sponsored him come to him to get cover. Ji Dong swiftly answers this by saying that it was because he still had connections within the police, so he made that happen. Back to the current time, we see Dong-ho telling all this to Guangxiol and him finding it very weird. Guangxiol then connects the dots and understands that it was all preset, and that even though the timelines were changed, it did not change significantly, as even back then, it was plausible that a rich dude would just ask the greedy police officer to take care of the case, which would also explain how he became the chief of the police department. Guangxiol comes to conclusion that the person who paid Ji Dong must be the one who took the life of Shin Min-hui, so he asks Dong-ho if he has any idea on who could have done such a thing. Dong-ho calms himself down, before telling Guangxiol to not panic and listen carefully. What Dong-ho says sends Guangxiol into shock, and he starts shaking in disbelief. Even Mungyu is worried seeing that. Guangxiol asks if what Dong-ho is saying is the reality, and Dong-ho repeats it again so that he understands better. Dong-ho says that the person behind the passing away of Min-hui is one of their crew, and that all signs are pointing to that. This ends up making Guangxiol tear up, as he still cannot believe this. Kwok Dong-ho says there is no other answer to this question other than that. Guangxiol can't quite believe why someone from his fam would take the life of Shin Min-hui and what motives there could be behind it. Kwok Dong-ho then tells him that no matter what, the guy who bribed Bong Ji-dong into covering up this case is someone who has a lot of power and is no joke. Kwok Dong-ho then notices something unusual as he is talking to John Guangxiol, He sees that the fruit juice that he told his driver to throw away is still there. Dong-ho then asks the driver just why is the carton of fruit juice that was given by Bong Ji-dong still inside the car, when he made it very clear to the driver to throw it away. The driver, named Minsik, says that he actually snuck it in on purpose, and that he did it because he took some money from Ji-dong and his people, and the people started threatening him using the money as the cause. However, they told Minsik that if he manages to sneak in this carton of juice inside the car, he will be let off for it. Kwok Dong-ho is pissed off by this, and he checks what is inside the fruit juice box. As he opens up the box, he finds a device there, and upon further inspection, he gets to know that the device is a live recorder, and that Ji-dong had just snuck in a live recorder to listen to what he says. Kwok Dong-ho is irate because of this, and he immediately tells the driver to stop the car right there. The driver turns away his attention to ask Dong-ho what he meant, and before Dong-ho can make him understand about this, a giant truck comes and runs over Kwok Dong-ho's car. The car goes flipping out thanks to the truck hitting it, and Jong Guangxiol is left shocked as he keeps asking just what had happened to Dong-ho on the phone. As the car is seen getting flipped over, we get to see a broken down and bloodied up Kwok Dong-ho, barely functioning properly. Dong-ho somehow makes it over and grabs a hold of the recorder from which Bong Ji-dong was keeping track of them. He realizes that all of this was masterfully orchestrated by Ji-dong, and back in his room, Ji-dong confirms that it was indeed his plan to make it go down this way. Ji-dong goes on about how he already knew that Dong-ho is a quick-witted lad, so it would have been hard for him to have lied to him without getting caught, which is exactly why Ji-dong chose to tell Dong-ho all about the truth. However, it is also why Ji-dong had to set him up this way. Dong-ho can't help but feel dread as he is unable to move his body. Meanwhile, his phone is still going off, with Jong Guangxiol shouting at him on the phone, asking him what had gone down. Guangxiol is left worried, as he doesn't know what had suddenly transpired for Dong-ho to stop responding when they were going on about the Manhwa case. As this is going down, all the gang members of Kwok Dong-ho's squad rush their way outside the room they were seated in. They go outside to check up on their boss and see what has happened. Right then, Guangxiol realizes that there is more to it in this game than what he already knows. Because after all, he can't help but find it shady that everything just ruined from a really nice position so quickly. It was perfect timing, which is why he thinks that it must have been pre-planned. Guangxiol suddenly realizes that Dong-ho just went there to mess with Bong Ji-dong, and he being who he is, must have definitely been behind this. However, this brings even more disparity to Guangxiol, as he understands that there is no way they can stop someone like Ji-dong, not in his current state. So, there's only one way to stop him, and that is to stop him from gaining influence back in the past. Back in the past, an irate Ji-dong is seen grabbing a hold of Chunjul's collar and tries to beat him up, as he blames him as the root of all things that had gone wrong with his life lately. However, he is quickly stopped by the people surrounding, and Ji-dong subsequently makes his way out of the hospital. Park Chun-gil was a bit taken aback by this sudden lashing out from Bong Ji-dong, and Kwok Dong-ho apologizes on behalf of Ji-dong, saying that it wasn't really his intention to cause a commotion in the hospital. Chun-gil understands that, however, he is curious as to why Ji-dong had come, because he just got fired from the police force, so it shouldn't be his duty. Dong-ho explains that it has to do with the fact that Ji-dong is one of the leaders of Gold Star faction. He was previously a police officer with a lot of influence within the group, but now that he has been fired, he was hired by the faction to act as a full-time leading man, thanks to him having acquired umpteenth amounts of information during his time with the police, and due to the fact that he is still someone with a lot of connections. The only downside to having him in the organization is the fact that he takes bribes though. Chun-gil takes in all this information, and he comes to realize that Kwok Dong-ho is not the culprit behind the passing away of his mother. So, Chun-gil gets up from his bed, and suddenly decides to run after Bong Ji-dong, knowing full well that he is the person who holds the key to the secrets. Chun-gil rushes after him. However, as he makes his way out of the hospital gate, he finds that Ji-dong is already entering his car, so Chun-gil makes a last-ditch effort to get to him, but he is stopped by the Dongbang twins. Chun-gil is pissed off by this and tries to get away from them, but he is next met by Park Tae-jun, and subsequently, the rest of the Dong Demon natives. The guys want to have a conversation with Chun-gil, but Chunjul's mind is somewhere else, so he once again tries to move his way out of the situation, but this time, his head starts spinning, and he collapses due to the exhaustion. Chun-gil loses his chance to get to Ji-dong, after which, he is seen at the hospital bed once again. There, the people from Dong Demon are having a conversation with people of Gangdong. This is when Park Tae-joon decides to tell everyone there or the big announcement that he was there to make as the representative of his area. Park Tae-joon announces an official partnership with Gangdong, vowing to work with them in the future. He thanks Sihu and his people for the help they've provided to them and says that the people of Dong Demon will be looking forward to paying back the favor in a greater manner. One of the Dongbang twins also speaks up, showing his support for the decision Park Tae-joon made. They also call out Kwak Dong-ho, who was standing there, telling him that the people of Dong Demon will no longer be under his spell, and that they are going to be working in cohesion with Sihu and his people instead. Kwak Dong-ho is left unfazed by that, as he lets them know that he is glad that he won't be seeing their faces anymore, before swiftly taking his leave from the room. As all of this takes place, Park Chun-gil is left scratching his head, as he doesn't have any idea on what to do now because he still doesn't know who the perpetrator is. As this is eating him up, Chun-gil comes to realize that Ji-dong must know who the criminal is, and on top of that, there are now more people in their crew. This makes Chun-gil chuckle as he realizes that he has everything, from Ji-dong to his mom. He has it all figured out, and so he puts in motion the first step. Chun-gil starts off by asking the guys if they are aware of any PC room, or net cafe as many people call it. Park Tae-joon informs him of one near the intersection, to which Chun-gil asks everyone present there to pay proper attention to what he is about to teach them next. He then goes on to ask them if they know about what a Bitcoin is. Back in the year of 2021, John Guangxiol is seen sitting at the office room of Choi Mungyu wondering just what will be coming next. Bong Ji-dong is now ridiculously influential, and none of them even have half a chance of taking down someone as strong as him. Kwak Dong-ho was also taken down during this cause. Guangxiol understands that Chun-gil has done a lot. The future was changed from the past several times, and there is no one who remembers anything about it. No one remembers how Kwak Dong-ho was a thorn on their side. No one remembers how Choi Mungyu was a lifeless chump with nothing to do in his life. No one even remembers the fact that Bong Ji-dong was once a police chief and not someone involved in the politics. The only one who remembers all of this is John Guangxiol, and he understands the assignment he has on his hand, that he is the only one who can make something happen. Just then, Guangxiol receives a call from Park Chun-gil. Guangxiol picks up the call, and a rather happy-sounding Chun-gil asks Guangxiol how the situation is going in the future. Guangxiol lets him know that the going has gotten tougher in 2021, and that they are in kind of a pickle thanks to Bong Ji-dong, who is now a powerful politician who has taken out a strong opposition like Gold Star Faction's number 2, Kwak Dong-ho. Park Chun-gil hears this, and he understands that the things have gone as he had expected it to go. Chun-gil then lets Guangxiol know that he has already taken steps to neutralize the discrepancy in power status between them and Bong Ji-dong. He lets Guangxiol know that he is going to give him the necessary power to win the battle against Ji-dong. Later on, Chun-gil is seen in the PC room, searching on the internet of 2003 about Bitcoin. As expected, no result actually comes up. That is because Bitcoins were invented in 2009, which is still 6 years away. Chun-gil has something cooked up in his mind, however. He knows that his has its own risks, but he must do it to hand over the power to Mr. Guangxiol so that he can be on even grounds with Ji-dong. A mini flashback is shown, where Chun-gil asked everyone in the hospital about who has the dream of being rich in the future. As is normal, almost everyone raises their hands in the air to show that they want to be rich. Chun-gil sees the positive reaction, and further adds to the question by asking everyone if they are willing to invest $1 million from their wallet and show trust in Chun-gil. If so, he can make them very rich. However, this sucks the energy out of the room as no one wants to spend that amount of money, and those who do want to do that can't really trust Chun-gil with their money. Chun-gil is worried by the response and asks Guangxiol if he wants to be rich quickly through this, but he lets Chun-gil know that he does not trust him one bit when it comes to that. Choi Mungyu lets him know that he is someone who believes in making honest money, and says that if someone really has $1 million to spend, they should instead spend it on their arcade, playing the brand new game that they have on there. Manhwa is excited by this, however, she is not sure about the investment part, knowing the risk that it has in play. Chun-gil understands that none of the guys are going to be of any use to him, and just then, one of the guy from the group steps up, and to the surprise of Chun-gil, asks him to make him rich. The guy is Hong Tae-jiam, who keeps a rather low profile, but he is interested in this offer by Chun-gil and decides to meet him later at the PC room. where he eventually shows up. There, Tae-jayam says that Chun-gil already knows how to become rich, so he should just teach him the method too. Chun-gil lets him know that he will do just that. He just needs Tae-jayam to trust him and give it some time and effort. Chun-gil further adds a question, asking if Tae-jayam trusts him, and if so, why? Why does he think that this investment will be worthwhile? A rough past is show of Tae-jayam, who seemingly grew up in a bad area. Tae-jayam then answers him by telling him that he has the trust of both Sihu and Mungyu, and that is why he believes that there is something in Chun-gil that is worth trusting. Chun-gil is happy to know this, and so he starts explaining everything regarding bitcoins to Hong Tae-jayam, knowing that he will be pivotal in changing the tides of the power scale. It was a tough time. After all, Chun-gil was predicting something that will go down 6 years in the future. However, he ignored the risks and pushed forward to change the future, even if it is by a little bit. Coming back to 2021, Mungyu and Gwangcheol have gone to the building that Chun-gil mentioned to them, and they are shocked by seeing how large it is. Gwangcheol wonders how much things have changed. Has Tae-jayam really become a crypto lord, to the point that he can help them in their cause? Besides that, can they even trust the guy because they have not seen him in ages? However, Gwangcheol remembers that Tae-jayam was in the military back when Minhui lost her life, and when Dong-ho mentioned to him that one of their own friends had taken the life of Minhui, he immediately took out the name of Tae-jayam from the suspects list because of that reason. However, there is not much time to think about these things, so Gwangcheol asks Mungyu to follow him inside. Inside the building, it is even more luxurious, and there, Mungyu and Gwangcheol make an appointment to meet the CEO of the company, Hong Tae-jayam. The receptionist makes the call to the CEO, and then sends the duo with the assistants to escort them to the room of the boss. Upon entering the room, Gwangcheol was shocked to see how one of their friends had become such a big man in life, as we see a long-haired, stylish, and suit-clad version of Tae-jayam. Tae-jayam greets his friends and asks them just why did they come uninvited to see them. Gwangcheol is a bit taken aback by that, but Tae-jayam eases up the coldness by telling them to take a seat and enjoy some tea now that they are already there to meet him. Tae-jayam lets the duo know that he had just come back from abroad, so it is the perfect time for them to meet up and chill out a bit. However, what Gwangcheol and Mungyu see next shocks them to the core. Tae-jayam notices this and lets them know that because it has been a while, they must not know about it, but this is the state that he is in currently. Gwangcheol falls down on the floor as he wonders if this is the risk that Chun-gil mentioned to him during the call. We then get to see that Hong Tae-jayam is now wheelchair-bound, and his face has sorrow written all over it, and many more stories to tell. A little bit of context is given to us about the life of Tae-jayam after the future was changed. In the beginning, Hong Tae-jayam was a kid who grew up in the back alleys of the Gangdong area. He grew up not knowing his parents. However, that does not mean that he did not have a family, as there were a few girls from the back alley who he considered to be his sisters. He lived with those girls, and they always treated him like he was their family. He also had loyal friends who would always stand up for him no matter the situation, such as Sihu and Minhui. So that is why Tae-jayam was happy, and he was determined to make it big in life. He worked the hardest among anyone in Sihu's group, and when the back alleys fell, and his sisters were left homeless and without a job, he took over the mantle of the family. He worked tirelessly in the construction field until one day in the 2010s, Bitcoin got big, and that is where he became super rich from. Back to the meeting, Gwangcheol and Mungyu ask Tae-jayam how he is doing, to which the guy replies that it is as they can see, he is alive and doing well for himself. He lets them know about the change of his life after cryptocurrencies got big. However, with fortune came misfortune, and that is why it feels like he was never even supposed to be happy with his life. As Gwangcheol hears this, he understands that changing someone's future so drastically can cause some huge issues in the life of people. Mungyu's was a huge change too, but with him being a police officer originally, it did not make a huge change when he went back to being one again after a slight mess up. However, with Tae-jayam, someone who was never meant to be this big, it brought forth incredible amounts of misfortune, like how he became crippled after crashing his car into a pole. Gwangcheol is lost in his thoughts, and Tae-jayam notices this, so he asks him about the stuff he was thinking about. Gwangcheol makes an excuse and tells him that he was thinking about their past and how they used to have a blast as friends. Tae-jayam agrees with the statement, noting that they did have the times of their lives back then. However, it all went to ashtray once Shin Minhui passed away. Sihu disappeared after that, and they all went their own ways with their lives, drifting apart. However, Tae-jayam thinks it is useless talking about the past, and asks the duo why they had paid a sudden visit, and tells them that if they are there to ask him for some help with what went down in the past, he is not going to listen to it. Gwangcheol tells him that he does indeed need help with the past, as they are investigating the sudden passing away of Minhui, but this pisses of Tae-jayam, who tells them to get out of the room. Gwangcheol tries to elaborate, but Tae-jayam informs the receptionist to send in the assistants to escort his friends out of the place. Just like that, they were being escorted out of the place. Mungyu asked Gwangcheol about what went wrong inside the room, and states that he did not expect such behavior from an old friend, and that they are in a bad position now. Gwangcheol agrees with the assessment. That is when one of the assistants speaks up, and Mungyu and Gwangcheol if they are old friends of Tae-jayam. Gwangcheol notices that the woman is none other than one of the sister of Tae-jayam. Mungyu is not sure about what he is talking about, but Gwangcheol explains how the woman is one of the sisters who always came to the arcade to take back Tae-jayam with her. The woman explains that Tae-jayam really saved them from their messed up lives, and gave a job to every sister. Gwangcheol realizes that Tae-jayam is still a very good guy. It's just that he has drifted too far away from them. The sister then explains that Tae-jayam is really pretending when he says that he does not care about the past, when the reality is that he does. He misses his old friends a lot and is often pondering about them. She lets the duo know that they gave up too quickly, and that they should have been more persuasive about it to convince Tae-jayam. Gwangcheol realizes that he really gave up too easily, and thinks that it must be because he is too dependent on Chun-gil to do even more miracles. However, he now decides to work stuff up on his own. Gwangcheol admits his mistake, and tells Mungyu that they should go back up, because he vows to get the help of Tae-jayam at all costs. Mungyu says that he already knew that this will happen, which is why he stole the cap which Tae-jayam had on his desk away. Gwangcheol asks why would a police officer resort to stealing, to which Mungyu explains that it is because he is off duty for a day, and besides, it is a sign that Tae-jayam still cares, which is why he has the old hat on his desk. Gwangcheol understands this, before he puts on the cap on his head. Mungyu asks him why he was doing that, to which Gwangcheol says that it is part of his plan, the plan to rekindle their friendship with Tae-jayam. Meanwhile, in 2003, Chun-gil is still in the hospital, but he decides to get back up on his own and leave the place to get back to work. He asks Si-hoo for his clothes, but he is informed by Si-hoo and Tae-jayam that Minhui had taken his clothes with her to wash it for him. Chun-gil is shocked by this, because he knows that the jacket he had on was from the 2021 collection of Adiba, and if someone finds that out, he will be in big trouble. The guys in the room were on about how they had not paid a visit to Minhui's house in ages, and that they should do it. This makes Chun-gil realize that he must go to Minhui's place and retrieve his jacket for himself, because he can't wait for anyone to get their hands on it, especially not his uncle, Taiki, who is the most dangerous person when it comes to these things. Just then, in the Shin household, Shin Taiki is seen checking out the tag that says 2021 on Chun-gil's jacket, which leaves him wondering what it means by 2021, causing a potentially big event for the impending visit of Park Chun-gil. Park Chun-gil makes his way to Shin Minhui's residence, and there he cannot help but feel a bit nervous, as that was the house his mother had grown up in. Eventually, he decides to suppress the butterflies and knocked on the door. However, it seemed like no one was inside to open the door, which is why Chun-gil opened the door himself, only to find Shin Taiki seemingly stomping on an old woman. This ends up being a misunderstanding though, as Taiki was just giving a massage to his grandmother. Taiki goes on a playful banter with his grandmother, and this makes Chun-gil feel very awkward, as he can't understand why his evil uncle is so wholesome all of a sudden. As this is going on, Shin Taekyung and Lee Jung-kyung, the father and mother of Minhui and Taiki, enter the scene. They ask Chun-gil if he is a friend of Taiki, to which Chun-gil replies that he is a friend of Minhui's. They still insinuate that he must also be a friend of Taiki, to which Chun-gil agrees. Chun-gil is a bit overwhelmed by seeing his grandparents, whom he had not seen much of after Minhui's passing, and what overwhelms him even more is the house in general. He cannot help but feel emotional knowing that his mom spent a good portion of her life there, from childhood to adulthood. However, his moment is interrupted by Taiki, who asks him the question he was fearing the most, that being why his jersey had a 2021 tag on it. Chun-gil feels cornered, as he does not know what will happen if his time-traveling secret is revealed to anyone. However, he is somewhat prepared to tackle this situation. As Taiki is about to ask him where he got the jacket from, Chun-gil tells him that the jacket is a second-hand produce and that he had gotten it off flea market. Taiki is shocked upon hearing this, as Chun-gil further explains that he is ashamed of the fact that he had gotten it from such a place, but it is what it is. Chun-gil had gotten the idea of using this from Park Tae-jun, who had asked him if he had gotten the klopthis from the flea market, and explained to him about how he buys his own clothes from the flea market because that is where you can get good clothing for cheap. Just at that moment, Shin Min-hui comes back home, and she is surprised from seeing Chun-gil at her place. She asks Chun-gil why he had come to her place without asking her first, before she understands that he must have come for the clothes. Shin Min-hui realizes that the clothes are not in the best condition, and she starts chewing out Taiki for this, asking him why he had not dried the clothes properly when she had asked him to do so. Taiki opposes her, telling her that she should have done so herself, and yells at her for telling him to care about cheap and fake clothes. Min-hui is pissed off by this behavior, as she believes that it does not matter if the clothes are cheap or not, he should have just treated them well. The argument gets heated and Chun-gil himself gets pissed off, as he cannot handle the fact that his uncle is yelling at his mother. He feels a bit relieved when his grandmother speaks up, hoping she would be a voice of reason. However, she just ends up yelling at Min-hui for apparently misbehaving with her elder brother. Chun-gil is genuinely mad over this, as he did not expect the household to run in such a patriarchal way, but his anger raised tenfolds when he sees his grandfather step up to his mother and slap her flush on the face. Taekyung wells at Min-hui for being a bad daughter and trying to put down her older brother and the eldest son of the Shin family in such a manner. Min-hui naturally tears up from this harassment, which triggers Chun-gil, who vows to get this misbehavior checked no matter what. Meanwhile, in 2021, Gwangcheol reveals his plan that will help them get close to Tae-jayam again. He asks Mungyu to look up on Bong Ji-dong and check what he had been doing in Gondong for the last few years. The reasoning behind this being that Gwangcheol knows that no matter the timeline, Ji-dong has always been a Gangdong regular, be that as a police or as a politician, and considering that the timelines have not changed massively, he expects the things to remain the same. If Ji-dong continued his stuff as usual, and with Tae-jayam becoming a millionaire, it would mean that they must have crossed paths at some time, and Gwangcheol plans on using that to make Tae-jayam believe that Ji-dong is the common enemy. Mungyu then finds out that Ji-dong was indeed active in Gangdong during this period, and even has a connection to Tae-jayam. However, he tells Gwangcheol the stuff he found out was rather extreme, and doesn't know if Tae-jayam would like to hear about it. Gwangcheol is also shocked after seeing this, and the sister of Tae-jayam starts crying after seeing this. Gwangcheol decides that he has no other way, and tells Mungyu to come upstairs with him, as they must show this to Tae-jayam. Gwangcheol says to himself as he walks towards his goal that he is feeling bad about using that piece of information, and is fully aware of the fact that it would cause a lot of pain to Hong Tae-jayam, but he needs to do it regardless of who gets hurt or not. He also hopes that Chun-gil stays tight in the future and does not mess up anything because he is going to be pulling the strings in the future from now on. Back to 2003, Min-hui's father is still berating his emotionally broken down daughter, this time even questioning her character. He accuses her of being a bar girl because of how she has been dressing herself and asks her to be an ideal child to her parents. Chun-gil's anger is out of control thanks to this, and through his own conscience, he apologizes to John Gwangcheol, saying that he is going to cause some major problems to the current setting with what he is about to do, but he is his mother's son, and being that, he can never see this go down as it is. Chun-gil steps up, grabs his grandfather and puts him in a momentary choke hold, before grabbing his head and slamming his down hard on the ground. Chun-gil says he will be the ideal son to his mother and deal with this issue. Next, he turns his attention to a livid Shin Taiki, and tells him that he will be teaching him a lesson for his misdeeds. The fight is about to start between uncle and nephew once again. However, this time Chun-gil had no idea that this fight would be the catalyst to reveal all the secrets, everything that would lead to the eventual demise of his mother, Shin Min-hui, in future. Back to 2021, Tae-jayam is seen looking at pictures of his past, where he is hanging out with his friends in the Sihu fam. As he is checking them out, Choi Mungyu and John Gwangcheol, alongside one of his elder sisters, enter the room again. Tae-jayam is annoyed by this, and asks them why they came back. He further adds to it by asking Gwangcheol why he had his hat on his head. Gwangcheol walks up to Tae-jayam, and tells him that he wanted to use this cap against him to get him to agree on helping them. However, he doesn't require that anymore, so he offers the cap back to Jae-im. Gwangcheol then alludes to knowing something important, before asking Jae-im just why had he distanced himself from them in the first place. Gwangcheol questions him whether he really felt nothing off about the sudden passing away of Manhwa, if he never felt the need to look into it. Jae-im responds to this by telling him that he doesn't want to get into that, because he is aware of the fact that the case is closed already. However, Gwangcheol interjects by telling him that the case is not closed. They tried to investigate it right away, however, they were stopped from doing so. Why? Because Bong Ji-dong covered it up. Jae-im is off-putted by the mention of Ji-dong, as he is a reigning member of the parliament, but Gwangcheol informs him that he was part of the Gold Star faction and was a former police officer, so he used that influence to cover stuff up. Not only that, but Ji-dong was also in charge of the Cheondeong reconstruction, the place where Jae-im comes from. This triggers some traumatic memories for Jae-im, who recalls how many of his sisters and their allies were assaulted, and even had their lives taken during that project. The sister present in the room adds further to the moment by telling Jae-im that they ignored it all, but it was true that a lot of their loved ones were taken out during that project, and when they tried to report it to the police, they swiftly rejected everything. Gwangcheol adds that he also tried to forget about the situation with Manhwa, deeming it just an accident. However, it was not. Now that he knows of it, he can't sit down and regret anymore, and that is why he wants to get back at people like Ji-dong for ruining their lives. Jae-im realizes that he never had the power to go against the strong when the reconstruction happened, and he regretted that. Now that he has the power and influence, he chooses to ignore his past, bury them deep in his heart, pretending as if that never happened. However, he doesn't want to do that anymore, and so a teary-eyed Jae-im regains his composure as he asks John Gwangcheol to tell him about everything in detail because he wants to take care of it. The scene changes to the park where Chun-gil is stressed out about everything that went down. He doesn't know how to face Manhwa after what he did. After all, he just choked his grandfather out from anger. He also slammed him down and stomped on his head. His grandfather questioned Chun-gil's education and what his parents taught him. Chun-gil made it abundantly clear that he never really got any education from them. In fact, he never really got to be with them at all. However, their family seems to be full and complete, yet they still have no values within them. Even though Chun-gil said it in the moment, he is unsure as to how Manhwa would react. He tells her that he didn't receive any sort of education from his parents, and that it was his fault for going overboard in anger. However, to his surprise, Manhwa was grateful towards him and thanked him for standing up for her. In fact, she feels guilty for making him get involved in something that he had no need to get involved in. Chun-gil immediately tells her that he got worked up on his own and that he has a hard time controlling his anger. Besides, Manhwa has no fault in what happened. All of it has always been Shin Taeki's fault. Manhwa smiles and agrees that it is indeed her brother's fault. Seeing her smile made Chun-gil realize that the person he was talking to was his mother. His mother, who no matter what he does, will always take his side. Following this, Manhwa returns Chun-gil his smartphone, which he had left in his jacket. Chun-gil is shocked by this and quickly takes it. He hasn't opened the phone since coming back in time. Manhwa asked him if it was a digital calendar or something, to which Chun-gil told her it was a phone. Manhwa assumes that people in the States use phones like this. Chun-gil then turns on his phone and is stunned to see phone call coming up. He can't believe it because this phone isn't supposed to operate in this timeline. It makes no sense, and the situation reminds him of when he received the call that sent him back to the past. With a heavy heart, Chun-gil decides to pick up the call. The call is a bit weird though. It has a woman talking to someone about her child. The bombshell is then dropped when the person on the phone mentions that their child is named Chun-gil. It is at that moment that Chun-gil realizes that this was the last ever conversation his mother had on the phone before she met her untimely and tragic end. Back in Hong Tae-jaeim's office, he asks Gwangcheol once again about who was the perpetrator behind Manhwa's passing. Gwangcheol informs him that it is Bong Ji-dong, and so Tae-jaeim gets to work. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Congressman Bong Ji-dong has gone to visit children at an orphanage. He talks to the kids and behaves nicely with them. He also tells them that he is always there for them, and that if they ever need anything, he will be supporting them. As he was doing his duty as a politician, one of his lackeys tried to tell him something. Bong Ji-dong shut him down immediately and told him that there's no need to hurry about catching Kwok Dong-ho's allies. After all, one of them is a hillbilly gym owner, and the other one is a normal policeman. They don't really possess much danger, so they can hang about. He states that the only reason why he did take care of Kwok Dong-ho so quickly was because he is someone with influence. Kwok Dong-ho posed some serious challenge to him as a person, hence why he had to take care of him first. Just then, another lackey comes running towards Bong Ji-dong. He says that there's a huge development that he needs to report. Ji-dong tells the lackey to calm down, as the kids are around and they don't want them to hear anything. The lackey then discreetly reported to him about how Chairman Huang has stopped funding them. This devastates Ji-dong, who rages out and starts cursing at the news. He no longer cares about what the kids think now that his sponsorship has been stopped. Ji-dong immediately tells his guys to dial up Chairman Huang, as they need to talk. On the other hand, we see Hong Tae-jiam on the phone with Chairman Huang. Tae-jiam says that he learned about Chairman Huang sponsoring Congressman Bong Ji-dong, and he wants that to stop. The chairman asks why he wants that. Tae-jiam informs him that for one reason or another, he is going up against the congressman, so he wants his allies to stop sponsoring him. Chairman Huang, loyal to Tae-jiam, immediately pulls his funding of Congressman Bong. As this was happening, John Guang-cheol and Choi Mung-yu watched in awe as one of their friends flexed his muscles. He is no longer the weak guy they knew, he is now someone who has an extensive knowledge of the industry. After the call, Guang-cheol asks Tae-jiam how it went, to which Tae-jiam tells him it was successful. Tae-jiam then tells them how the only way to take down a politician is not about exposing their wrongdoings or anything. As long as they're being funded, they're good to go, hence why he took out his funding. Politicians are funded by the owners of loan companies for the betterment of their own establishment. It also helps that these owners have recently transitioned into cryptocurrency, because it's safer to launder money this way. This is where Tae-jiam comes into the play, as he is a premier individual in the crypto scene. So, taking down a congressman or two is like child's play to him. His influence leaves Guang-cheol and crew in awe, as Tae-jiam declares that he will find out every funder of Congressman Bong in about 15 minutes. After that, Tae-jiam asks them why they think that one of the sponsors of Bong Ji-dong took Minhue's life. After all, once someone is rich enough to sponsor politicians, they wouldn't want to get involved in these kind of things. It muddies their reputation. So, it doesn't really make sense for them to do something like this, especially nowadays where most of the issues in the world is caused by money and is solved by money. So, Tae-jiam reckons that it doesn't make much sense. Guang-cheol snaps out and asks Tae-jiam just what he is pointing to with all the vague talk. Tae-jiam, much more serious now, points out how he thinks that the perpetrator is no single entity. Instead, there is more to this case than what meets the eye. Guang-cheol and Mung-yu are confused by this, but Tae-jiam explains how there is someone else other than the funder, the person who directly took the life of Minhui. They need to find that person too. The scene changes back to Chun-gil experiencing the final conversation of his mother on the phone. He listens to it and wonders what is even happening at this point. In the phone call, Shin Minhui talks to her mother about Shin Taiki and how she doesn't want that crappy person showing up at her house. Her mother thinks she is being harsh because that crappy person is her brother. Even so, despite being her brother, he keeps forcing his weight around her. Taiki, despite there being a young child in the house, speaks very harshly around him, something Minhui deeply dislikes. However, her mother wants Minhui to give Taiki another chance in life. Apparently, he is turning his life around. She mentions how he goes to church and regrets all his past wrongdoing. A serious expression fills the face of Park Chun-gil as he listens to this chilling phone call. Minhui of the past notices this and wonders what is wrong. She overheard a little to understand that it was related to Chun-gil's mother. She realizes that there is many more layers to this, that she just isn't aware of yet. Right at that moment, Shin Taiki appears in front of them, looking for vengeance after Chun-gil beat up his father. Taiki finds it blood-boiling that Chun-gil and Min-hui can just sit around so normally after what Chun-gil did to their father. Shin Taiki tells Min-hui to get away from Chun-gil right away, as he was going to teach him a lesson. Chun-gil was still consumed by the stuff he was hearing on the phone, and his expression was grim. Taiki went near him and found it outrageous that he was sitting there with such an expression after doing what he did. He questions if Taiki never learned about respecting one's elders. He further goes on to insult him by saying that Chun-gil never learned anything because he doesn't even have parents. So he decides to teach him a lesson himself. Before he could have finished, Shin Taiki is knocked out with a single devasting left by Park Chun-gil. Emotional, Chun-gil says how it is true that he doesn't have any parents, but through the phone call he learned something far important. He learned everything his mother said in her final conversation, and he learned about how she passed away. Saying this, Park Chun-gil starts crying uncontrollably. However, his sadness is filled with rage, as he declares that now Shin Taiki needs to wish that he meets his maker soon. Chun-gil knew that his mother passed away through a gas leak at their house. However, what he learned from the phone call he just heard was the real reason why she no longer exists. He learned of things that has truly stunned him. The story moves to flashback to 2007, before Shin Min-hui passed away. There, Min-hui was having a full-on argument with her elder brother, Shin Taiki. She told him that she has money on him, so he should stop asking. However, Shin Taiki was persistent and threatening in his tone. Min-hui, a strong lady, doesn't back down and tells him that if he keeps causing a scene at their house, she will be forced to call her husband, Park Si-hu. Shin Taiki doesn't care about that and tells his sister to go and call her husband. According to him, Park Si-hu was really something in the past. He was the man. However, now he is just another man, a father, that's it. So he doesn't care if she calls him. This further ignites the flames even more in their argument, as they keep going louder and louder. Suddenly, baby Chun-gil wakes up from his sleep and starts crying. As his mother, Shin Min-hui wastes no time to go over to her child and console him. She tells him nothing is wrong, that mommy is there for him. Chun-gil found this whole stuff to be quite scary. After somewhat calming her child down, Shin Min-hui once again warns her elder brother. She says that if he doesn't leave, not only will she call Park Si-hu, but also the police. This finally makes Shin Taiki leave the place. He bangs the door on his way out, and Min-hui apologizes to baby Chun-gil for scaring him. Later, after Park Si-hu comes home, Shin Min-hui tells him that Taiki had barged into their house uninvited. She informs him how he caused a ruckus and asked for money. He even searched through the entire house for money. She mentions how she has no idea how he gets their address. Park Si-hu, angered, walks to the door. Min-hui notices this and quickly goes over to stop Park Si-hu. He doesn't want to stop though, he wants to find Shin Taiki and beat him up. Min-hui tells him he is way too angry to go out now, but he starts yelling. Park Si-hu doesn't understand how Taiki finds out their address all the time and shows up when he isn't around. The next-door neighbor is bothered by their constant arguing and wonders why the couple are always fighting, not knowing the context. It was because of this that Shin Min-hui called her mother and told her to stop Taiki from coming to their place. After all, he threatened to take her life, and now Park Si-hu has gone mad and is looking for him. Her mother never stops supporting her son and states how he is a changed man who goes to church now. Shin Min-hui calls bullcrap on that, as she knows her brother. He probably has some other motives to go to church. A person like him doesn't change so quickly. He is the guy who wasted a decade, hiding in his home and spending money on gambling. There's no way he can suddenly become a good guy. Just then, Taiki shows up behind Min-hui, leaving her shocked. Taiki proceeds to physically hurt Min-hui, and he does it to the point that she becomes incapacitated. Taiki wonders if he just messed up and took her life for real. Back to 2003, Park Chun-gil started pounding down on Shin Taiki with all his might. He pulls no punches and gives it his all to finish off the person who took his mother's life. Shin Min-hui tries her best to stop Chun-gil, but he just won't budge. Park Chun-gil keeps beating the ever-living crap out of Shin Taiki. He feels like that there is no need for such a vile human being to live. Not only him, but his entire family is our excuses for human. Back to that faithful day, Taiki's mother on the phone kept asking Minhui what happened so suddenly. Realizing it's his mother, Taiki picks it up and informs her that he made a mistake and might have mistakenly took the life of his own sister after he found that she was bad-mouthing him. His mother immediately froze up after what she heard and started crying. She yelled and asked how he could take the life of his own sister, while he pretended that it was a mistake and apologized. Taiki's father heard his mother crying and immediately went up to her and took the phone from her. His father asked Taiki if what he just heard was the truth. Taiki admits that it was the truth and that after he hit her, she stopped breathing altogether. After taking it all in, the father tells Taiki that he is the eldest son of the family. Because of that, they can't lose him as well, so he tells Taiki to listen attentively, as he instructed him to how to get out of the mess. Taiki followed the instructions and leaked out the gas as was told to him by his father. Back in 2003, Chun-gil kept on battering Shin Taiki like there was no tomorrow. He was hitting him so much that Minhui begged for him to stop. She said that if he goes any further than this, he will end up taking his life. Just like that, the night turned into dawn, and it finally hit Chun-gil. He let go off Shin Taiki, as he realized what his real purpose was in coming back to the past. His purpose was to exact revenge on the people who tormented his mother. The person who keeps calling him and giving him all this information wants him to know of this. That is why they help him in doing so. Shin Taiki might have been the one who did it and his family supported it, but there are still other factors. Why was he hiding in their house in the first place? What warranted him to commit such a vicious act? His parents helped him out, but still, he got out scot-free from the incident. He couldn't have done it alone. There was definitely someone else who pulled the strings from behind. Someone who is a benefactor in all of this. Chun-gil realizes that he must find that person at all costs. If his purpose is to take revenge, he will execute it perfectly. Chun-gil then gets up and asks Minhui where Park Si-hoo was. Minhui wondered why he was asking, to which Chun-gil said he needed to borrow his phone. Back in the future, Gwang Cheol is a bit taken aback, because in a matter of moments, Tae Jiam states that he has found the main sponsor behind Congressman Bong. He says that he has managed to do so by tracking down the bank account of the person. So, now they have figured out who is the one pulling the strings, which is why Tae Jiam tells them to get ready, as they were now going to meet the person who supposedly caused all of this to take place. And off they go, Tae Jiam and his secretary sister, alongside Jong Gwang Cheol and Choi Mungyu. Upon arriving at the place, Jong Gwang Cheol was having second thoughts. After all, JT was a church. He questioned if Tae Jiam is really sure that the person sponsoring Congressman Bong is inside the church. Tae Jiam says that there is no doubting that. A mini flashback is shown of Hong Tae Jiam's call with Chairman Huang. Tae Jiam was told by Chairman Huang that they figured out who the main sponsor was to Congressman Bong Gi-dong. Chairman Huang showed some regret in doing this because usually he isn't the kind of person to pull of these things. However, he has done this just for Hong Tae Jiam. Tae Jiam expresses his gratitude towards Chairman Huang for doing such a thing for him. Chairman Huang then told him that he has forwarded the information about the sponsor to Tae Jiam's phone. However, the sponsor is a bit weird compared to others, because the sponsor isn't even a person. They're a religious group who run a church. Usually, religious groups have a lot of money on them, but you don't see them sponsoring politicians directly. Chairman Huang questions why Tae Jiam was looking to get the favor of a religious group of all things. It's hard to gain their favor without being a devout follower. Back in the real time, Tae Jiam and Ko move forward and enter the church to find the truth. Despite what Chairman Huang said, it is not out of the norm for people to come to the church for help. Even politicians want God on their side after all. Money is not an issue for such organization because they have the backings of hundreds and thousands of people. They hold immense influence over everything. Even in the national politics, religious groups hold a lot of influence. All in all, in South Korea, there might be no other organization that holds more power than the religious groups. Suddenly, Choi Mungyu notices something weird and immediately dashes towards the person sitting at the church. The rest of the group wonders what's up, But Mungyu goes up to that person and asks him if he was the father of Jong Byum, their friend. The rest of the group also know who Jong Byum is and go up to the guy as well. They introduce themselves as friends of Jong Byum and question his supposed dad about the whereabouts of Jong Byum and how he was doing. The person stays silent for a good while before he finally spoke up to tell everyone that he was Jong Byum himself. This kind of shocks everyone else as they look at each other. After that, they ask him why he was there at the church. Back to 2003, and Park Chun-gil had gone to Park Si-hoo's house to meet him. Park Si-hoo was confused as to why Chun-gil was there. On top of that, he was confused about all the things he was saying, as he didn't know anything. Chun-gil grabbed Si-hoo by the collar and asked him just why he wasn't present at home during that night. He melted out all his frustrations at him. Park Si-hoo, understandably, had no clue about what he was talking of. However, he did understand that he was in a lot of stress, and that Chun-gil probably even got into a fight. Seeing him crying, Park Si-hoo decides to pat him on the back to comfort him and tell him to calm down. After receiving some much-needed love from his father, Chun-gil asked Si-hoo to borrow his phone. Park Si-hoo told him that his phone was inside and that he will go and get it for him. However, Park Chun-gil was already off, dashing towards the house. Si-hoo tried to stop him, which further offends him. Chun-gil asked what he was going to do if he goes inside by himself. Si-hoo said that he didn't mind, but his grandmother is definitely going to be mad if he barges in. Just then, Si-hoo's grandma appears and swings her cooking stick at Chun-gil. She misses by a bit, but makes sure to scold Chun-gil. She is a woman who believes in etiquette, so she thinks that one should ask their friend for permission before going to their house, instead of barging inside their house without asking. She is mad at Chun-gil and is weirded out by the expression on his face. She asks Si-hoo if he beat up Chun-gil or something. Si-hoo told her that he is a nice guy and that he is from the United States, hence why he doesn't know the etiquettes very well. Chun-gil realizes that the person standing in front of him was his great-grandmother. He understands that he can't gain success in this mission without the help of Si-hoo's grandmother. He can't just go and anger her. He needs to be in her good books, which is why he decides to leave for the day and come back later. Grandma gets mad at Chun-gil for glaring at her, while Si-hoo tries his best to stop her. Chun-gil ends up crying again from the stress, as explains to Grandma how he has been very lost for the last few days. He apologizes for scaring Grandma for no reason, and is about to leave the place when Grandma stops him. Grandma thinks it's too late for him to leave without eating, so she tells him to come inside, as she prepares food for him. Chun-gil is grateful that she was doing so much and didn't want to trouble her further, which is why he walked up to Grandma and told her to rest, as he didn't want to bother her anymore. He tells her that he will come to eat some other day. Instead of accepting this, Grandma uses her stick to hit Chun-gil in the head and takes him inside. After that, Grandma tells Chun-gil to eat up. Park Si-hoo also starts eating and states that the food is good. Grandma then tells Chun-gil to always respect the elders and not behave rashly, because if one behaves so badly, their education which they received from their parents come into question. Si-hoo tells her that Chun-gil behaves this way because he lives in America, but Grandma thinks that people should be respectful regardless of their nationality. Despite all the lecturing, Chun-gil feels a homely vibe at this place. Maybe it is because he came from the disjointed household of his mother, but this really feels like a real family to him. Just then, Grandma holds her lower back and gets up from eating. She says that her back is hurting again, but tells the kids to keep eating and moves away. Chun-gil realizes that he can probably help her with this, as this kind of pain is easily fixable with some physical therapy. Thankfully, he has learned how to do it, so he goes up to Grandma and proposes to give her an adjustment. Chun-gil proceeds to give her an adjustment, and although she was getting it first, she eventually warmed up to it. After Chun-gil was done, Park Si-hoo was shocked to see his grandma pull off unrealistic acrobatics at her age. Chun-gil told him that it is all thanks to the special technique that he used on her. Grandma confirms this by telling Si-hoo that she is feeling better than ever. Grandma also shows her gratitude towards Chun-gil by telling her that she likes him. She says that he should be coming to their house more often. Grandma further offers for Chun-gil to stay the night at their place, because he doesn't seem to have a place to go to. Chun-gil considers this as a prime opportunity to get a chance to call John Guang-cheol. However, Si-hoo tells his grandma that Chun-gil won't be staying, because he has to go. He just came to their place so that he could borrow Si-hoo's phone. This ticks off Grandma. She questions if Chun-gil is here to borrow the phone she bought for Si-hoo. Si-hoo days yes, and this seemingly angers the granny. She strides towards Chun-gil and aggressively grabs him by the face. She analyzes him and questions who he is and why he wants to borrow her grandson's phone. Subsequently, she snaps and starts yelling at Chun-gil for coming here to take her son away again. Si-hoo and Chun-gil both are confused, as Si-hoo also tries to calm her down. Chun-gil wonders if Grandma noticed something unusual about him. Grandma yells about how it had started with a damned phone call. The story moves to a flashback where we see the reasoning behind Grandma's behavior. It was sudden, but one day, her son, Si-hoo's father, just suddenly disappeared. He had seemingly gone out of existence. No one could find him. He had abandoned his own son and mother. At first, it was very hard to digest for Grandma, because she knows her son isn't the type to be acting this way. She went on the streets, asking random people by showing a picture of her son to them, if they have ever seen him. It was to no avail. It took time, but eventually, she accepted the fact that her son is gone forever. It took her 10 years to move on, but she did, and started living her life raising her grandson. It was all going good until one day, out of nowhere, her son reappeared. She was shocked to see her son, Park Ji-hun, in living color and in front of her. She was shocked to see his newfound youth. He looked much younger than before and had a different vibe to him. He initially referred to her as Grandma, but fixed it and started calling her Mom again. She asked him many questions, but he ignored them and went straight to Park Si-hoo's room. There, he took Park Si-hoo's phone and went off. His mother tried to stop him, as it had only been minutes since he had arrived from a 10-year excursion, yet he was leaving already. She asked him to at least wait and see his son's face, but he stated he was too busy and left. Just like that, her son, who came back after 10 years, took the phone and left, never to be seen again. However, the thing that was the most shocking of it all was that the phone somehow made its way back to Si-hoo. It was shocking for Grandma, and she disliked the phone. So, she decided to throw it away. That being said, the phone always made its way back home on its own. This was shocking to say the least. Grandma tried to keep the phone away from Si-hoo, but it always made its way back. It was then that Grandma made a pact with Si-hoo. She told her to never use the phone or give it to anyone, as it clearly seems to be connected to his father and her son. Back in the 2003 timeline, Si-hoo explains that this is the reason why Grandma is so protective over the phone. It seems to hold some mysteries within itself. Si-hoo is out with Chun-gil at the park and notes that his grandma must be worrying at their house at the moment. She must be thinking that he has been taken away from her as well. Chun-gil understands that this phone of his father's might be the trigger that caused the time travel. It must hold great significance. Si-hoo mentions how he always followed his grandma's instructions about the phone until Chun-gil showed up. Chun-gil always comes and takes his phone and uses it to call someone mysterious. Not only that, he also manages to pull off some very unrealistic feats after talking on that phone. He solves all the problems. So, Si-hoo wants to know just who Chun-gil is talking to and why he is doing so. Chun-gil is caught up in the question, but he manages to answer Si-hoo. He tells him that he just can't tell him about this at the moment. After all, he doesn't know how telling his father would affect the future. However, there is one thing that Chun-gil can tell Si-hoo for sure, and that is the fact that he is in desperate need of the phone. So, he requests Si-hoo to let him borrow it. Si-hoo, somewhat reluctantly, agrees to let him borrow it. The scene shifts back to the future, where Jong Beom makes everyone wait and completes his prayers. After he is done, he tells all his friends that he is done and that they can get a move on. He states how today was an important day for prayer, so he had to get it done first. After that, Jong Beom questions their reasoning to come to the church so suddenly. Is it because they're looking for something important? John Guang-cheol answers him, by telling him that they are investigating the passing of Shin Min-hui. This shocks Jong Byum. They remind him of the stuff that happened 14 years ago and how it was all covered up then. However, they have restarted the investigation by themselves. This makes Jong Byum tear up, as he mentions how he thought everyone had forgotten about it. He embraces Gwang Cheol as he breaks down and cries. Jong Gwang Cheol let him in on this for a reason. Jong Byum has always been soft-hearted. He can never be the one behind Min-hui's passing, because he doubts there is a person who cares more about Si-hu than Jong Byum. He is their friend, and he is trustworthy because of that. The good thing is, with Jong Byum's connection, they will be able to figure out a lot about the church. Following this, Gwang Cheol points out how the church is huge and is crowded to the brim. He adds how they had no idea that Jong Byum's family were running such a huge establishment. Jong Byum says that because of his father running a church, he got mad at him for being a gangster and even told him to stay away from Si-hu's fam. The group remembers the moment and mentions how Jong Byum even got his hair shaved for disobeying orders. Choi Mung-yu then asks Jong Byum how his father is doing now. Jong Byum's expression turns sad as he informs them how his father had passed away. This shocks the group, as they question Jong Byum why he never informed them about this. Jong Byum says that once their connection broke off, he was too conscious about going back to them, so he couldn't contact them. Because of this, he was very lonely as the chief mourner at his father's funeral, because no one he knew was around him. It was at this moment that Gwang Cheol realized that their friend circle got really disjointed after what happened with Min-hui. However, as Mung-yu and others consoled Jong Byum, he realized that they are coming back to their past glory. Regrouped, Jong Byum gets on topic and asks them if Bong Ji-dong is the one causing them trouble. He states that while their church is big and has a lot of people involved, he can figure out the one behind Bong Ji-dong if he tries hard enough. Gwang Cheol cherishes this moment, as this marks their return to form, as all their top players are back and are more reliable than ever. Jong Byum then states that he can figure out who the guy is in about an hour, so there's no need to worry. Everything was coming together like a movie. However, Hong Tae-jiam didn't look pleased, because in his phone conversation with Chairman Huang, the chairman told him that the son who took over the church from his father is a gangster. Forget being the chief mourner at his father's funeral, he didn't even bother showing up. However, Jong Byum here is saying an entirely different thing. Tae-jiam grasps that Jong Byum is lying to them, and that their beloved friend is now a foe. Jong Byum notices the expression on Tae-jiam's face, so he smiles at him sinisterly and asks him if there is anything wrong with him. Afterwards, Jong Byum takes the group to a secluded room and sits them down. He serves everyone tea and starts the talk. He stated that from what he has gathered from the group, he can tell that the benefactor of Congressman Bong is in the church. However, he can find that person out in no time, so there's no need to sweat anything. As he was talking, Tae-jiam was sweating and looked as uncomfortable as he could. Suddenly, a man comes from the outside and asks the priest, Jong Byum, to come with him, as they needed to talk about something. Jong Byum told everyone to wait for a bit, as he needed to talk to the guy for a while, and said that he was coming back soon. Jong Byum then left the room while talking with the guy about some task he assigned to him. After they go out, Tae-jiam tells everyone to listen carefully. He finally informs everyone that Jong Byum is lying. Jong Gwang Cheol and others don't quite believe this, as there is no reason for Jong Byum to do so. As Jong Byum discusses something with the man in the hallway, Tae-jiam tells them that he doesn't know why Jong Byum is doing what he is doing, but the fact of the matter is, Jong Byum is lying, and that they should quickly leave the church. Before that, Tae-jiam says that he should be contacting outside sources first, and decides to call someone. To his surprise, the signal to their phone has already been cut off, and even the door has been locked down. Meanwhile, we see a flashback of what Jong Byum did in 2007 to instigate Min-hui's passing. He provoked Shin Tae-ki by calling him to the church. He asked him if he was really this useless. He mentions how Shin Min-hui has never acknowledged him as her brother. Understandably, this pissed off Shin Tae-ki, who questioned his tone and asked why he even called him to this place. In fact, he didn't even know how he got his number. Jong Byum got more intense and called Tae-ki a useless fool, who has no idea why his life has turned out so horribly. Hiding away at home at his age, being so miserable. Does he even have an idea why he is like this? Taiki was intrigued as to what he was pointing to. Jong Byum continued on, saying how at one point, Taiki was hitting his prime. Then, he got beaten up by Park Si-hoo, and his reputation was in tatters. Following this, even his parents, who were so supportive of him, pulled back their financial support towards him. Why did that all happen? Jong Byum asked, before pointing out that it was all orchestrated by Shin Min-hui. Min-hui, who hated him so much that she always talked him down behind his back. To further rile him up, Jong Byum tells Taiki to go to her house, set up a recorder or eavesdrop on her. Then, he will be able to find out just how badly Shin Min-hui talks of him. This made Shin Taiki irate, who in turn ended up doing all the things that he did. After that, he called his mother and informed her, from which his father got the news and wanted to talk to him. However, contrary to belief, it wasn't his father who suggested he orchestrate the gas leak. Instead, his father told him that as their eldest son, they don't want to lose Shin Taiki as well. However, at this point, there is nothing much they can do. He teared up and told Taiki that the best they can do is go visit him at the prison. Shin Taiki then told his father that there is actually someone who instigated him into doing all this, and he will just ask him to take the blame away from Taiki. Following this, Jong Byum went to meet Bong Ji-dong, whom he wanted to cover up the incident about Min-hui. Jong Byum told him that he only trusts Ji-dong with this, because he is the only corrupt police officer he knows. Ji-dong is a bit confused by all the things Jong Byum mentioned, which is why Jong Byum added some context to it by telling him that he met Ji-dong when he came to the hospital after getting fired for them. Ji-dong understood the assignment, but he questioned Jong Byum about why he wanted to cover up the passing of Shin Min-hui, who is also a friend of his. Jong Byum tells him that it is because she betrayed him. Back in the current time, Jong Byum thinks about how there was something that happened between him and Si-hoo, something that changed everything, and something that he has never told anyone, nor does he wish to. Inside the room, everyone is panicking because the door is locked. Choi Mung-yu bangs on it hard and asks for help, but to no avail. John Gwang-cheol couldn't believe what was happening. So, Jong Byum ended up being the perpetrator behind the passing of Min-hui? But why? Is there any reason? Did he always hate Min-hui? Or did he have a crush on her? What even is the reason at this point? Just at that moment, the group starts smelling something and soon realizes that it was gasoline. Jong Byum was pouring gasoline all over the room to burn them all down. He said that it was their fault that is causing him to do this. If only they forgot about the past and let bygones be bygones, this wouldn't have happened. However, he notes that they have no idea about the kind of woman Shin Min-hui really is. If they did, they probably would take their side, but alas, there's nothing that can be done. As Jong Byum gets ready and ignites the fire, John Gwang-cheol realizes that Jong Byum is the one who pulled it all off, but now he is caught up and can't do anything. If he perishes now, there is no way out but to change the past. And according to Jong Byum, there is nothing that can change the past. However, Gwang-cheol knows that to change history, there is only one way, and that way is through Chun-gil. Back in 2003, Park Si-hoo gave his phone to Chun-gil and told him to hurry up and make a call. Si-hoo thinks that something bad might happen if he doesn't make the call, so he should quickly do it. Park Chun-gil takes the phone and gets ready to call John Gwang-cheol, who he wants to wait for just a little while longer. After starting the fire to burn down the entire church, Jong Byum calmly walked away from the place. He reminisces about the moment which stirred all of this up. He asked Park Si-hoo if he was really serious about quitting everything they've done. Park Si-hoo was damn serious. Jong Byum wanted him to hang on for a little while, because if they do, they'll capture the entirety of Gondong. However, Park Si-hoo thinks they've done enough, and now it's time to move away from these things. Jong Byum wondered if this was because of Shin Min-hui, and from that day onwards he started resenting Min-hui. Back in the current time, he walks away from the church, leaving it all burning down. People outside were watching and praying for the people inside to make it out safely. However, Jong Byum knew that it was all over. He just finished off his friends for his revenge. He knows that he just committed crimes that can never be forgiven by anyone, yet there's nothing that can be done now. Back in the room, the smoke from the fire has slowly started to creep in and caused all sorts of discomfort for everyone present there. Choi Mung-yu tried to use his huge figure as a battering ram to smash open the door, but no matter how he tried, it failed. Gwang Cheol was left dumbfounded. He knows that there is no stopping Jong Beom, now that he knows that he is the perpetrator. What can he even do at this point? Right at that moment, his phone starts ringing, and he is shocked and wonders how it is working. He takes it out and sees that it was Sihu's number, so he quickly picks it up and starts talking to Chun-gil. He tells Chun-gil to listen carefully, as he directly tells him that the perpetrator behind Minhue's passing is none other than their friend, Lee Jong-beom. Chun-gil quickly shuts him down and says that he has figured out the real perpetrator, and that it is Shin Taiki. He is the one who took Minhue's life that day and framed it as a gas leak. This absolutely stuns John Gwang Cheol, as he never expected Taiki to be the one. He was sure that it was Jong Beom from what just happened. At that moment, it finally occurred to Gwang Cheol how it all went down. It was Jong Beom who had planned to take the life of Minhui, but he wouldn't be able to do it himself, so he provoked Shin Taiki into doing it. It was hard provoking Taiki, but he eventually managed to do it. Getting Taiki acquitted for Minhue's passing was going to put Jong Beom in trouble too. So he hit up Bong Ji-dong and took his help in covering up the entire incident, in exchange of providing him financial support for his political campaign. Finally, all the dots connected for Gwang Cheol, and he figured it all out. Meanwhile, a lot of smoke had gotten into the room, and they realized that they were living on borrowed time. Knowing this, Gwang Cheol once again told Park Chun-gil to listen carefully, as he started elaborating everything to him, piece by piece. Gwang Cheol told him how they are the only two people in this world who knows what really happened. Chun-gil figured out that it was Shin Taiki who took the life of Shin Minhui. However, what he doesn't know is that the one who planned all of this is Lee Jong-beom, and he used Bong Ji-dong to cover it up. Chun-gil is taken aback by this bit of information. He asks just how it is that Jong Beom, a friend of his father, would do something like this. Gwang Cheol then went into more details and explained it all to Chun-gil, which left him devastated. Gwang Cheol tells him that Chun-gil's goal now is to stop Jong Beom and avoid all of this. Just then, the roof of the room Gwang Cheol was in breaks down and a piece falls on top of him. Chun-gil hears the sound and immediately gets worried, asking Gwang Cheol what happened. Gwang Cheol, with his end being all but sealed, tells Chun-gil to concentrate on the task on hand, because it is probably going to be their last ever call. Chun-gil didn't want to believe this. He was telling Gwang Cheol to not talk like this. But by now, Gwang Cheol had started to fade away. It is then that Gwang Cheol remembers that he has never once told Chun-gil how much he loves him. So, for his final words, he gets ready to say it to Chun-gil. But fate has other ideas, as another piece of concrete falls on Gwang Cheol, taking his life. Chun-gil tried to get a response out of Gwang Cheol, but the line had already been cut off. Chun-gil loses it and starts crying uncontrollably. Even Park Sihu is taken aback by what he just saw. Through this, Chun-gil had understood everything. He was suddenly sent to the past, where at first he got into a conflict with his father. After that, he got into other fights and other problems. He met all kinds of different people, be it the Gold Star faction or the Dong Demon leaders. He even went to his mother's house, which helped him figure out part of the truth. But after looking back on it, Chun-gil realizes that all of those things are connected to each other. The path to bring back the people he loves the most all goes through the same way. Determined, Chun-gil vows to save each and every one of them. Following this, Chun-gil asks Park Sihu to guide him. He wants to go and meet Lee Jong-beom. Immediately after that, Park Chun-gil runs at full speed towards the location where Lee Jong-beom was. He had no plan to stop. He wanted to get there as quickly as possible and get to work. Park Sihu ran after Chun-gil and tried to stop him, but to no avail. Park Chun-gil was determined. He had to save his people. Sihu asks him why he was even after Jong Beom all of a sudden, but he just dashed towards his goal. This was because of what John Gwang Cheol had told Park Chun-gil in their final call. He informed him that it was Jong Beom who provoked Shin Taiki into doing what he did. However, there is a reason behind what he did. The reason was that Jong Beom wanted to make Park Si-hoo the de facto leader of the Korean gang scene. Chun-gil didn't quite understand what Gwang Cheol meant, so he went into detail. After the Si-hoo gang started to rise into prominence because of the Dong Demon incident, they had effectively drawn a target on their back. Everyone in the country wanted to come and take over Gondong and put an end to the rising phenomenon of Park Si-hoo. People from everywhere, Seoul to Gwangi-do to Gangwon-do to Cheongnam-cheongbuk. Even people from Gyeongsang-do and Jeonla-do were coming to take down Park Si-hoo's gang. So basically, they were in a war with the country's top gangs. However, it wasn't easy to beat Si-hoo and the guys because they had what others lacked, a will to protect their place. They fought to protect their Gondong from falling in the hands of malicious people. Thus began the war to protect Gondong. As this war was going on, Jong Beom wanted Park Si-hoo to gear up and the gang to take over the rest of the country. That way, Park Si-hoo becomes the king of the gangsters, and they can also protect Gondong. This plan was obviously a bit too much. Park Si-hoo didn't agree with it at all. It was not long after that day when Park Si-hoo announced his sudden retirement, effectively retiring himself and the Si-hoo gang along with him. This thing hit Jong Beom hard. Park Chun-gil himself can't quite believe that his father just suddenly decided to retire like that. However, Gwang Cheol explained Park Si-hoo's reasoning for doing that. It was because Min-hui was pregnant with Chun-gil. This shocks Chun-gil. Si-hoo, after all, was a family man and it meant a lot to him. And this is where Jong Beom started resenting Min-hui. This is why Chun-gil is hurrying up, because he can't afford to wait. He needs to get there and stop Lee Jong Beom from causing any trouble. He can't give him the chance to start hating his mother. And so he arrives at the John Ho Park. Upon getting there, Chun-gil asks Park Si-hoo if this is the place where Jong Beom is located. Si-hoo says it is, but he also points out how there are a group of people who are also there. The group of people in question are the Song Group, or to be more precise, their 1984 front gang portion. They came there after they heard that Park Si-hoo and his gang took over the Dong Demon area by storm. Hence, the leader was there to talk to Si-hoo. But as he wasn't there, he was talking to Jong Beom and company. The guy told Jong Beom to tell Park Si-hoo to come and fight them. They are going to crush Si-hoo and his gang and take over their area. Park Chun-gil sees all this transpire in front of his own eyes and understands what John Gwang Cheol meant when he mentioned the Gondong Protection War. We see another flashback of Park Chun-gil's call with Gwang Cheol. There, Chun-gil says that he doesn't care about the Gondong Protection War or anything. At the end of the day, Lee Jong Beom did take his mother's life, so he just wants to finish him and end it. But Gwang Cheol is strictly against that way of action. He points out how Chun-gil has done various things that have changed the future drastically. The changes starting from the Mungyu incident to the Kwakdong Ho and Tae-jiam-won all had a huge impact on the future. Yet the result always remained the same. Min-hui still lost her life. It's different from what Chun-gil had envisioned, and same could be for this one as well. Chun-gil isn't guaranteed to save his mother if he takes Jong Beom's life. In fact, it might cause more trouble, as all events regarding Jong Beom just end up never happening. They can't afford to create a time paradox. Chun-gil understands what he means, but he questions Gwang Cheol on how he is supposed to stay put when he sees the people who took her life. Gwang Cheol understands his sentiments, but neither Taiki nor Jong Beom are behind Min-hui's passing. Instead, it all happened when Park Si-hoo and the gang retired after winning the protection war. The strongest leader just left, and the thing that made Gondong strong disappeared. This alerted the other gangs, and so once again, people from all over the country came to take over Gondong. This time, there was no Park Si-hoo to save it. As many unknown gangs came to plunder the unprotected Gondong, they needed to set an example. They did it by beating the heck out of Shin Taiki and his crew. They chose him because of his connection to Si-hoo through Min-hui. They beat him up badly and placed a lifetime debt on him that he needed to pay back in monthly installments. He had to pay them back 10 million Korean won every month for the rest of his life. He can't even afford to be late, let alone miss a payment without facing consequences. They took his golden tooth and told him that if he wants to resent someone, it should be Park Si-hoo, because he abandoned Gondong. From that day, Shin Taiki started living life as a loser, and the first cog to start the machine that took his mother out fell in place. That is why Guang Chiol tells him to not do anything rash by taking lives. Instead, he needs to pick each of his upcoming steps meticulously and for a better future. Back from the flashback, Chun-gil makes up his mind to do just that, even though the easier way out seemed like taking out the person behind his mother's passing. But that just won't work. Just then, one of the song group members notices Sihu and recognizes him. They have the person they wanted to beat up in front of them. They also notice the guy beside him, Chun-gil. They make fun of his attire, but before long, Chun-gil hits the guy with a thunderous punch, shocking everyone. Chun-gil had made up his mind. The only way to protect everyone was to make sure that his father never retires. Chun-gil, while crying, tells Sihu that his future is going to be bad. He was going to get betrayed by his own people and lose everyone he loves. The only way to undo it is by not retiring. No matter what happens, he must stay beside his friend during battles like these and protect Gondong. Chun-gil was getting emotional because doing this means that his father won't marry his mother. He won't give birth to him. However, this was going to fix everything, and everyone was going to be saved. He proposes to Sihu to team up with him, and the two of them would rule the country together. Even though it felt bad, even though it hurt, Chun-gil was willing to sacrifice himself to save the ones he loved. And so, began a brand new half of the story. At Gangbuk, the Tiger Gang's Lee Jong-hyun and Moon Min Hyong were having a talk. They were talking about how Gondong, for the first time, had made an offensive move. Jong-hyun wonders why the always defensive Gondong are doing something like that. Min Hyong tells him that they've gained some confidence after the Dong Demon incident. They've also defeated the Song group. It is from there that he has learned what Gondong is planning next. We see some context from that day. After beating up the Song group, Chun-gil asks Sihu if he realizes the situation in hand now. He adds how everything is solvable as long as they fight together and take over the country. The moment he gives up on this idea, Sihu and his friends will both suffer a lot. So, he must always look to conquer more areas. Sihu tells him that he doesn't quite understand what he is saying. Right then, Zhang Biam steps up and says that he will now be talking for everyone. He asks Sihu just how long are they going to protect Gondong? Just how much more of this defensive war must they go through? Zhang Biam declares that he is tired of it. Chun-gil understands that these people must be following all of Sihu's order without exception. However, this pointless defensive war has taken a toll on them. Sihu tries to talk to Zhang Biam, but Zhang Biam instead talks to the leader of the Song group unit. He tells him that from now onwards, Zhang Biam and his friends are going to rule the nation. This pisses off Sihu, but Zhang Biam continues on, asking the guy just how long they think Gondong will stay silent. So, from now on, they will be the ones on the attack. Sihu, angered, questions just when did he announce that they're going to be on the attack. But Zhang Biam tells him to open his eyes and look around his people. They're all tired of taking this defensive approach. Not only that, but the new rumor is that the Gangbuk gangs are coming after them. The leader of the Song group's subunit noted all this and reported it to Min Hyong, who told it to Jong-hyun. Lee Jong-hyun thinks that this new approach of Gondong might be because they're tired of their old approach, or maybe it is because they've somehow figured out that the Tiger Gang is about to attack them. Just then, they notice John Guang Chiol spying on them. They are a bit intimidated by him as he does look strong. However, he is just one guy, so they send one of their bigger dudes to him. The dude tries to confront Guang Chiol, but he is too quick and skilled for it. Guang Chiol easily takes out the guy. The Tiger Gang still don't get why Gondong decided to send in just one guy. However, Lee Jong-biam also shows up. He points out how having two guys changes the game. Jong-biam tells them that the domination era of Gondong has begun, and the takeover of Gangbuk begins with the Tiger Gang. Meanwhile, at the all-nighter group's meeting place, they were playing snooker. It is then that they tell their leader Dako Jiangti about the recent rise of Gondong and how they're on the attack. They all talk about it dismissively, until Hong Tae-jiam and Insai Hyan show up to the scene to take down the all-nighter group. Hong Tae-jiam announces their decision to take over all-nighter group, but this makes Dako Jiangti laugh. He questions if they are joking because otherwise, he can't tell why they would send just 2 guys to beat over an entire gang. All of them start making fun of Gondong, when Tae Jaeum fully declares that it is indeed going to be the 2 of them who will take out the all-nighter group. Not only that, because today, Gondong will take over the entirety of Gangbuk. They will do it at a speed that they can't even comprehend. Within a day, Park Sihu, their leader, will already be the leader of the Gangbuk base camp. Just then, we get to see Park Sihu arrive at the Hongdae nightclub. Jaeyoung finds this ridiculous. Taking over the Hongdae seed in a day is ridiculous claim after all. However, Tae Jaeum doubles down and reaffirms that they'll do it. He says how they hadn't told Sihu about anything for a while. They were tired of the suffering they had to go through to protect Gondong, but now that Sihu knows about it, he is going to destroy everyone in his path. Meanwhile, Sihu goes inside the room where the Hongdae seed are based in. The guys dismiss Sihu as a mere kid and tell him to go back home before his parents complain. They send in a random guy to take care of Sihu, but when the guy sees who it is, they realize that it was the infamous Park Sihu of Gondong. Back at all-nighter group's base, Tae Jaeum tells Jaeyoung that taking over Gangbuk is just the beginning, because little by little they will take over the entire nation. They will dominate the entire country to protect Gondong. Jaeyoung asks them if they are crazy, because there's no sense in taking over the country to protect a single place. Tae Jaeum replies by saying that they have indeed gone crazy, as we see that Jong Beom and Gwang Cheol have already started beating up the Tiger Gang guys. Tae Jaeum further adds that the ones who have made them crazy are them. So now they are going to face their wrath. Meanwhile, at the Hongdae seed's base, Park Chun-gil joins up to team with Park Sihu. He tells everyone to cut the small talk and get ready to write. He takes his fighting stance while he was at it. As an official member of Gondong, Park Chun-gil promises to show them all just what kind of people come from Gondong, and thus marks the official beginning of mission Take over Gangbuk within a day.